The violent storm had stolen Sod away, and the village elders had declared her lost forever, swallowed by the unforgiving sea. But Nuru couldn't accept it. He wouldn't. Driven by desperation, he captured Azima, a silver-haired mermaid with the power to guide him into the ocean's depths. But as she gazed at him with haunting eyes, she warned him, retrieving Sod wouldn't just require courage, it would demand a sacrifice. What happened next would send Nuru into the heart of a dark and dangerous world beneath the waves, one that would expose a long-forgotten god's wrath, topple an ancient curse, and force Nuru to choose between the woman he loved and the mermaid who might be his only hope. They thought they were diving into the unknown to save Sod, but instead, they were awakening a power older than the sea itself. And Azima, whose quiet strength hid a tragic past, may know more about Nuru's fate than he ever imagined. As Nuru prepares to face the unimaginable, one question lingers: will he risk everything to save the woman he loves, or will the sea claim them both? Just before we dive deeper into this epic tale, we'd love to know where you're watching from. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow, we've got an extra special story lined up for you, and you definitely won't want to miss it. It was a night unlike any other in the village of Ebury. The wind howled like a pack of wolves in the distance, and the trees trembled as if they were afraid of the coming storm. The villagers had gathered in their homes, praying for the storm to pass, but Nuru stood alone by the sea, his heart heavy. His betrothed, Sod, had gone to the shore that afternoon to collect seashells, as she always did. But the storm had come suddenly, and Sod had been swept away by the waves, her cries for help carried away by the wind. The elders had said there was no hope, that Sod was lost to the sea forever. But Nuru refused to accept it. His heart beat in a frenzy as he paced the shore, unable to sit still. He could feel her presence, as if she were still out there, somewhere beyond the waves. His eyes scanned the churning sea, searching, hoping for a sign. Then, as if the ocean itself had heard his cries, something glinted beneath the water. Nuru's breath caught in his throat. A silver flash, almost like moonlight, shimmered beneath the surface. He hesitated for only a moment before diving into the cold, unforgiving waters. The waves crashed against him, but he swam deeper, drawn by the strange gleam in the depths. His heart pounded as he swam farther, the sea growing darker with each passing moment. And then, out of the deep blue darkness, a figure appeared. A mermaid. Her long silver hair flowed like a river of moonlight, and her eyes glowed with a haunting, otherworldly light. She stared at him, unblinking, as if she had been waiting for him. "Who are you?" Nuru gasped, struggling to keep his head above the water. "Where is Sod?" The mermaid's voice was soft, almost melodic, yet tinged with sadness. "Sod is lost to the sea," she said. "But she is not gone. She is becoming something else." Nuru's chest tightened. "What do you mean? Where is she? Please, help me bring her back." The mermaid's eyes darkened. "To retrieve her, you must sacrifice something precious to you." Nuru's heart raced. "I will do anything," he said, determination burning in his eyes. "I will give everything." The mermaid's gaze softened, and she sighed. "Then follow me," she said, her voice filled with both sorrow and warning. "But know this, what you seek will come with a price you may not be ready to pay." Nuru nodded without hesitation, his mind fixed on one thing: Sod. He would do anything to save her, even if it meant facing the unknown depths of the ocean. The mermaid led Nuru through the waves, her silver tail flickering in the water like a flash of lightning. As they descended deeper, the pressure of the water grew heavier, the ocean swallowing them whole. Nuru's body felt like it was being pulled in every direction, but the mermaid swam with ease, her movements fluid and graceful. "You must know," she said, her voice now a whisper against the roar of the ocean, "Sod is not simply lost. She is becoming a bride of the ocean, chosen by the god of the deep." Nuru's heart sank. A bride? To whom? The mermaid turned to face him, her eyes filled with a sorrow that matched the depths of the sea. To the ocean god himself, she said. The god who rules over the tides and the storms. His heart is filled with anger, and he seeks to claim the souls of those who are drawn to the sea. Nuru clenched his fists. But why Sod? She didn't deserve this. The mermaid's eyes glimmered with sadness. It is not a choice, she replied. The sea takes what it wants. And once it claims you, there is no return. Then we will take her back, Nuru said fiercely. I will fight the ocean god if I must. The mermaid's expression darkened. You do not understand. The sea does not give its gifts lightly. To retrieve what has been taken, you must make a sacrifice of your own. One that may cost you more than you are willing to lose. Nuru stared at her, his chest tightening. What do you mean by sacrifice? The mermaid looked at him, her eyes filled with a quiet, painful understanding. I too once made the same mistake you are about to make, she said softly. I was once human, just as you are. I loved someone, and I too was drawn to the sea. And in my desire to save him, I gave up everything. My humanity, my soul, my love. Nuru's heart hammered in his chest. You were human. The mermaid nodded. I was once Azima. I was a woman who loved and was loved. But the ocean took me, just as it took Sod. And now I am bound to the depths, unable to return to the land I once knew. Nuru was silent for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. The journey ahead would not be easy. He could feel it in his bones. And yet, the love he had for Sod burned brighter than ever. I don't care what it costs, he said, his voice firm. I will bring Sod back, no matter the price. Azima's gaze softened, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, something like regret, like she knew the cost of such a decision. Then prepare yourself, Nuru, she said. For what lies ahead is a choice between the woman you love, and the one who is slowly claiming your heart. The ocean grew darker the deeper they swam, until the light from the surface was nothing more than a distant memory. The water was cold and heavy, pressing in from all sides. But Azima led Nuru on, her silver hair gleaming faintly in the dark depths. Where are we going? Nuru asked, his voice strained from the pressure. Azima did not answer immediately, her gaze fixed ahead as if she were searching for something in the deep. After a moment, she spoke. We are going to the heart of the ocean. To the place where the ocean god resides. It is there that Sada's transformation is taking place. Nuru's heart skipped a beat. How will we find her? Azima's expression softened, but there was a sadness in her eyes. You will know her when you see her. She will not look as you remember. The sea has changed her, made her into something else. But her heart will still be hers, if you can reach it. Nuru nodded, determination flashing in his eyes. I will find her. I won't let her become one of them. Azima stopped swimming and turned to face him. Be careful, Nuru, she warned. The ocean god is not kind to those who seek to steal from him. You may find yourself trapped in the depths, just as I was. But Nuru was beyond listening. His love for Sod was all-consuming, and he would not rest until she was safe. He had already made his decision. Azima's eyes softened, as if she understood his resolve. Then we go together, she said softly. But remember, you may not be able to save her without losing something yourself. With those words, she led Nuru deeper into the ocean, toward the heart of the sea where the ocean god awaited. The journey had only just begun. The further Nuru swam, the colder and more oppressive the water became. His limbs grew heavy, as if the ocean itself was trying to drag him deeper into its depths. The eerie silence of the underwater world surrounded him, broken only by the sound of his own breathing and the steady rhythm of Azima's fins gliding effortlessly through the water. Nuru tried to push through the fear that gripped his chest. The unknown had always terrified him, but this was different. This wasn't just a fear of the sea, it was a fear of losing Sod. Of losing everything. Azima glanced over at him, her silver hair swirling around her like a halo in the dark waters. "We are nearly there," she said quietly. "The ocean god's lair is close. Do you still wish to continue?" Nuru's gaze hardened. "I won't turn back. Sod needs me. I will do whatever it takes to bring her back." Azima's eyes softened with a strange mixture of sorrow and understanding, but she said nothing. They continued to descend, the weight of the water pressing in on Nuru's chest, the darkness swallowing them whole. Then, as if the sea itself had parted, a light appeared ahead of them, faint at first but growing brighter as they approached. The water shimmered with an ethereal glow, and Nuru's heart skipped a beat. He could feel it. This was the heart of the ocean. This was where Sod was being transformed, and it was here that the ocean god waited. As they swam closer, Nuru could make out the shapes of massive rocks and coral structures, forming what looked like a grand underwater palace. Towering pillars rose from the sea floor, decorated with seaweed and barnacles, their surfaces glistening in the strange, otherworldly light. At the center of it all was a massive altar, bathed in a pulsing blue glow, as if it were alive. The air itself seemed to hum with power. Azima slowed as they approached, her expression growing more serious. "This is where it happens," she whispered. "The ocean god resides here, in this sacred place. And it is here that Sada's transformation will be completed unless you stop it." Nuru felt a chill run down his spine. The sight before him was both beautiful and terrifying. The air was thick with magic, with the kind of power that could shatter a man's will. But he had no choice. He had to save Sod. They reached the altar, and Nuru's breath caught in his throat. Atop the stone slab lay Sod, her body pale and still, her eyes closed as if in a deep, peaceful sleep. But the transformation was evident. Her once dark hair had turned a shimmering blue-green, her skin was now kissed by the sea, and her delicate fingers were tipped with webbed fins. Her legs had been replaced with a long, shimmering tail, covered in scales that glimmered like the finest gemstones. Nuru's heart wrenched in his chest as he looked at her. She was beautiful, but she was no longer the woman he had known. She was becoming something else, something he feared he might never recognize. "Azima, is this what the ocean does to them?" Nuru asked, his voice barely a whisper. Azima nodded solemnly. "Yes. The ocean god claims those who are taken by the sea. He turns them into brides for his realm. They are no longer human, but neither are they truly sea creatures. They exist in a space between both worlds, bound forever to the ocean." Nuru's stomach twisted with fear and anger. "But I won't let her become one of them. I'll take her back, even if I have to fight the ocean god himself." Azima stepped forward, her silver tail flickering as she moved. "You are brave, Nuru, but you must understand the cost of what you seek. The ocean god is not easily defeated. And the price of taking her back may be more than you are willing to pay." "I don't care," Nuru said firmly. "I'll pay any price to save her." Azima's eyes softened with pity. "Very well," she said quietly. "But know this, once you choose, there is no turning back." Before Nuru could reply, the water around them began to stir. A dark, rumbling sound filled the air, and the sea seemed to come alive with an ancient, primal force. From the depths of the ocean, a shadow emerged, growing larger and larger until it took shape. The ocean god was here. He rose from the depths, his massive form towering above them. His body was covered in scales that shimmered like the night sky, and his eyes glowed with a cold, malevolent light. His long, flowing hair resembled tangled seaweed, and his voice was a thunderous roar that shook the water around them. "Who dares enter my domain?" the ocean god's voice boomed, sending ripples through the water. Nuru stood tall, his heart racing, but his resolve unwavering. "I do," he said. "I have come to take Sod back." The ocean god's eyes narrowed, and a cruel smile curled at the corner of his lips. "And what makes you think you can take her from me, mortal? She belongs to the sea now. She is my bride, and no one shall steal her from me. Nuru's fists clenched. I won't let you have her. She is mine. Ozima stepped back, her face pale with fear. Nuru, you do not understand the power of the ocean god. He is beyond mortal comprehension. No man has ever challenged him and lived. But Nuru's mind was made up. He would fight for Sod, no matter the consequences. I will not leave without her, he said, his voice steady. The ocean god's laughter echoed through the sea, a deep, rumbling sound that sent shivers down Nuru's spine. Very well, mortal. If you wish to take her back, you must prove your worth, the god said. But know this, there is always a price for those who challenge the sea. With a wave of his hand, the sea around them surged, and Nuru found himself surrounded by massive waves, crashing against him from all sides. The ocean god's power was overwhelming, and Nuru could feel the weight of the water pressing against him. Let the test begin, the ocean god declared. The waves roared around Nuru, threatening to pull him under. His body strained against the current, but he fought to stay upright, his eyes fixed on Sada's unconscious form. He could feel her presence, as if she were still there, still waiting for him to save her. Ozima's voice echoed in his mind. Be strong, Nuru. Do not let the ocean break you. Nuru gritted his teeth and pushed forward, determined to face whatever challenge the ocean god had set before him. The sea swirled around him, rising higher and higher, until he was standing at the edge of a massive wave. The water towered above him, threatening to crush him beneath its weight. Show me your strength, mortal, the ocean god's voice boomed. With a roar, Nuru lunged forward, diving into the wave. The water slammed into him like a wall, but he fought against it, using all his strength to swim toward Sod. Each stroke felt like it took everything out of him, but he refused to stop. He had to reach her. He had to save her. But as he neared the altar where she lay, the ocean god's voice echoed once more, deep and resonant. You are brave, mortal, but you cannot win. The sea always claims what it desires. The waves crashed around Nuru, pulling him in every direction, threatening to drag him down. But his resolve was stronger than the ocean's fury. He reached out and touched Sada's hand, feeling her warmth beneath the cold water. And then, with one final push, he pulled her toward him, lifting her from the altar and into his arms. The ocean god roared in fury, his power surging through the water. But Nuru stood firm, holding Sod close, ready to face whatever the sea would throw at him. Nuru held Sod tightly in his arms, her body limp and unresponsive. The waves raged around him, crashing violently against his back, but he barely noticed. His focus was solely on her, the woman he loved, the woman he had come so far to save. But as he clutched her to him, the ocean god's voice boomed once more, deep and thunderous, echoing in the water. You have taken her, the ocean god growled, his tone filled with wrath. But you have also taken the price. Nuru's heart skipped a beat. The air around him seemed to thicken, and the water grew colder still, as if the ocean itself were turning against him. A dark shadow spread beneath him, and suddenly, his body began to feel heavy, as though the weight of the sea was pulling him down. What price? Nuru demanded, his voice strained as he tried to keep Sod above the crashing waves. You have defied me, the ocean god answered, his voice rising in fury. You took my bride, and now you must pay. The balance has been disturbed, and you, mortal, must bear the consequences. With a wave of the ocean god's hand, the water around Nuru swirled violently, pulling him down. His feet were no longer on solid ground, he was sinking, being dragged deeper and deeper into the abyss, the weight of the ocean pressing in from all sides. The sea seemed to have a mind of its own, and it was intent on swallowing him whole. Sada's body, still limp in his arms, began to shift. Her tail, once shimmering in blue, was starting to glow with an otherworldly light, pulsing with the rhythm of the sea. The transformation was far from complete, but it was happening faster now, as if the ocean itself was pushing her toward her fate. Let her go. Nuru shouted, fighting against the pull of the water. She is not yours. She is mine. The ocean god's voice came again, now calmer, but no less chilling. You took her from me. Now you must choose, Nuru. You can save her, if you are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. What sacrifice? Nuru gasped, struggling to keep Sod above the waves. Tell me what I must do, and I will do it. The ocean god's laughter filled the water around him, dark and menacing. The choice is yours. You can return to your world with Sod, but she will remain a creature of the sea, forever torn between both worlds. Or, you can stay with her in my domain, and she will be returned to you as a woman, but you will never see the sun again. Nuru's heart pounded in his chest, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He had come so far, had defied the ocean god himself to rescue Sod, and now he was being asked to choose between her and his own life. Azima's voice came to him then, soft and filled with sorrow. Nuru, listen to me. The god speaks the truth. I once made the same choice, and I lost everything. Nuru turned to Azima, his eyes wild with desperation. You were once human. Azima nodded sadly, her silver hair floating around her like a halo. Yes. I was once like you, mortal, full of love and dreams. But I made the same mistake you are about to make. I tried to save someone I loved, and in doing so, I gave up everything. I stayed with the ocean god, and now I am bound to this place, with no hope of return. But there must be another way. Nuru cried. I can't lose Sod to this. Azima's eyes softened, a mix of compassion and sadness in her gaze. There is no other way. The ocean god does not give freely. If you choose to stay, you will lose your humanity, just as I did. But Sod will be returned to you, whole and alive. The price is steep, Nuru. It is more than just a life, it is everything you are. Nuru's mind raced. The weight of the decision crushed him. He had come to save Sod, to bring her back, but what was he willing to give up for her? Was he ready to forsake his entire life for her, for love? But as he looked at her, her beautiful, glowing face, her tail flickering in the water like a beacon, he knew there was only one answer. I choose her, Nuru said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. I will stay with her. I will never leave her again. The ocean god's eyes glowed brighter, his massive form looming over them. Very well, he said, his voice filled with dark satisfaction. You have chosen your fate. You shall remain with her, and together, you will live in my domain. But remember this, there is no turning back. You are bound to the sea, as she is. Nuru nodded, his heart heavy but resolute. He would never leave Sod again. Whatever it cost him, whatever the ocean god demanded, he would pay the price. He had come for her, and he would stay with her, for better or worse. Azima watched them both with a mixture of pity and understanding, her silver tail flicking in the water. You have chosen as I did, Nuru. But be warned, the ocean does not forgive easily. The path you walk will be filled with trials, and you will never truly be free again. But Nuru didn't care. All that mattered was that Sod was safe in his arms, and he had made his choice. The ocean god's form began to fade, his power receding as he left them to their fate. The waters around Nuru and Sod began to calm, the fierce currents dissipating as the sea returned to its natural state. Nuru looked down at Sod, his heart filled with love and sorrow. She was still a mermaid, her tail shimmering with an ethereal glow. But now, she was his again, and he would do whatever it took to protect her. Azima swam closer, her expression unreadable. The ocean will test you, Nuru. It always does. But you are not alone. I will be here to guide you. Nuru nodded, his grip tightening on Sod. Thank you, Azima. I will need your help. And with that, the three of them swam deeper into the heart of the ocean, where the waters were thick with ancient power, and where the future of Nuru and Sod would be written in the tides. The ocean around Nuru, Sod, and Azima grew darker the further they swam. The once inviting blue of the surface world faded into a cold, shadowy expanse. Creatures of the deep, unseen but ever-present, stirred in the vastness. Nuru's senses sharpened with each passing moment, feeling the weight of the ocean pressing in from all sides. It was a world unlike any he had ever known, a world where light had no place, where the rules of his old life no longer applied. Sada's body shifted again in his arms, her once vibrant tail now shimmering with an eerie, almost translucent glow. She had been submerged in the sea for too long, her transformation nearing completion. Nuru's heart twisted in his chest as he looked down at her, seeing her struggle to remain conscious in his arms. The love he had once known seemed so far away now, a distant memory, swallowed by the darkness. Azima swam silently beside them, her silver tail undulating gracefully through the water. Her gaze remained fixed ahead, but Nuru could see the sadness in her eyes. She had known this path all too well. "We are nearing the heart of the ocean," Azima spoke, her voice barely audible over the swirling currents. "It is the domain of the ocean god, where your fate will be decided." Nuru nodded, though the weight of her words hung heavy in his mind. He had chosen to stay with Sod, but the sacrifices he would have to make were still unclear. What awaited him in the heart of the ocean? What would the ocean god demand of him next? "Sod," Nuru whispered, brushing a strand of her hair from her face. "Stay with me, my love. Stay with me, and we'll find a way out of this. I'll save you, no matter what." Her eyes fluttered, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came. Her breathing was shallow, and the transformation was claiming her more with each passing second. Nuru could feel the pull of the ocean god's power, stronger now, trying to pull Sod fully into his grasp. Azima glanced at Nuru, her expression a mixture of sorrow and regret. "Nuru, you must understand. What you are asking for, it is not possible to undo what has been done. The ocean god's will is absolute. You cannot reverse the transformation. Not unless you." "Unless I what?" Nuru interrupted, his frustration bubbling over. "Tell me, Azima. What is the cost of saving her? Tell me everything." Azima hesitated, her eyes distant, as though she were recalling a painful memory. "To undo the transformation, Nuru, you must give up your most cherished memory, the one thing you hold dearest. The ocean god demands that you trade your love for Sod for a life of eternal solitude. If you give up that memory, Sod will return to you as she was, but you will no longer remember the love you share with her. You will forget the very reason you chose to stay in this dark world." The words struck Nuru like a blow. The thought of losing his memories of Sod, the memories of their shared laughter, their quiet moments together, everything that made her so dear to him, it was an unbearable thought. How could he live without the woman he loved, without the memories that defined their relationship? "That's impossible," Nuru whispered, shaking his head in disbelief. "I can't forget her. I can't forget how much I love her." Azima's expression softened. "I understand, Nuru. I have been where you are now. I made the choice to stay in this world, to keep my love, but the price was that I lost everything I was. I don't remember the woman I was before the ocean claimed me. I don't remember my family, my home, or even my name. All I know now is the ocean. It consumes you, slowly but surely. That's the cost of making a pact with the god of the sea." Nuru's chest tightened as he thought of his own family, his village, his life before this journey. Would he truly lose it all for the woman he loved? Was the love he held for Sod worth more than the life he had known? Or was the ocean god right, that love, like everything else, could be claimed by the sea, and he would have nothing left to hold on to? "Is there no other way?" Nuru asked, his voice breaking. "Is there no other path to save her without losing myself?" Azima's eyes clouded with uncertainty. The ocean god is not known for mercy. He will only give what is demanded of him. If you wish to save Sod, there is a cost, and it is a heavy one. I am afraid there is no way around it. Sada's body quivered again, her tail beginning to ripple with the final stages of the transformation. She was so close now, so close to becoming a creature of the deep, bound to the ocean forever. Nuru could feel the time slipping away, and the desperation in his heart grew. "We don't have time," he said urgently. "If I give up my memory, will she truly be restored to me?" Azima nodded. "Yes. But you will not remember her, Nuru. You will have no memory of the love that bound you to her, and you will live with the knowledge that she is the one who sacrificed her humanity for you. The ocean god will have his payment, and you will have your love, but at a terrible cost." Nuru's heart was torn in two. He had already given so much, his safety, his comfort, his freedom, all to save Sod. Could he bear to give up the one thing that made everything worthwhile, the love he had for her? "I will do it," he said finally, his voice quiet but firm. "I will give up the memory. I will save her." Azima's face grew pale as she swam toward him. "Are you sure, Nuru? Once you make this choice, it cannot be undone." Nuru nodded, his gaze unwavering. "I will save her, even if I must forget everything else. Sod deserves to be free, to live the life she was meant to have. If my memories are the price, then I will pay it." With a heavy heart, Azima swam alongside him, guiding him deeper into the ocean. The weight of his decision settled over him like a dark cloud, but his resolve remained strong. He had made his choice. And now, he would face whatever the ocean god demanded of him. As Nuru and Azima swam deeper into the heart of the ocean, the sea around them grew colder and darker still. The water was thick with the presence of the ocean god, and every movement seemed to echo through the vast depths. Nuru's mind raced, but there was no turning back now. He had made the sacrifice, and now he would face the consequences. Sada's transformation was nearly complete. Her tail shimmered with a glowing light, and her once human features were now merging with those of a sea creature. The change was beautiful in its own way, but it was also tragic. Nuru could see her eyes, still full of the woman he loved, but they were beginning to lose their familiar warmth, replaced with the cold, unfeeling gaze of the ocean. Azima turned to Nuru as they approached a towering structure in the depths of the sea, an immense, coral-encrusted palace that seemed to pulse with the energy of the ocean itself. The air was thick with the scent of salt and ancient power. "This is where the god of the ocean resides," Azima said softly. "It is where the bargain will be struck. Prepare yourself, Nuru. The ocean god will not show mercy." Nuru's heart pounded as he approached the palace, the weight of his choice pressing down on him. He had chosen to save Sod, but now he would have to live with the knowledge that he had given up his love in order to keep her. The ocean god's voice filled the water, deep and resonant, like a rumble of thunder. "You have made your choice, mortal," the god boomed. "Now, you shall pay the price." The deep, thunderous voice of the ocean god reverberated through the water, vibrating Nuru's very bones. He clenched his fists, determined not to waver. The palace before them shimmered, almost as though it were alive, pulsing with the power of the ocean itself. The walls of coral and shells were adorned with glowing sea creatures, jellyfish, anglerfish, and even massive, ancient sea serpents who slithered along the palace's pillars. Azima swam beside Nuru, her silver tail glowing faintly. Her expression was a mixture of apprehension and resignation. She had walked this path before, but for Nuru, this was a first. She knew the cost, she had known it all along. But now, as they stood at the threshold of the ocean god's domain, she understood that Nuru's path would be even more painful than hers. "The bargain is set, Nuru," the god's voice boomed again. "You will lose your memories of love and the life you once knew. In exchange, you will save the woman you call Sod. The choice is made." Nuru's throat tightened as he nodded. He had made his decision. He could still feel the sharp, painful tug of love for Sod, but he knew that if he wanted to save her, this was the price he had to pay. Every part of him longed to hold onto his memories, the laughter, the late-night talks, the feeling of her hand in his. But now, standing before the god of the sea, there was no choice but to follow through. "Do it," Nuru said, his voice barely a whisper as he looked down at Sod. Her transformation was nearly complete. Her once human features had become indistinct, her face now a strange mix of human and fish-like beauty. Her body shimmered, as though she were being woven into the very fabric of the sea. Azima's expression softened as she spoke, her voice a mixture of sorrow and warning. "Once the bargain is struck, Nuru, you will never be the same. The memories of Sod will fade into nothing. You will be left with the hollow echoes of your former life, and you will not remember why you chose this path." Nuru nodded, his heart heavy with grief. "I know. But she deserves to be free, Azima. She deserves to live without the sea taking her away from me." Azima reached out to gently touch his arm. "I once thought the same, Nuru. But the cost of the ocean's mercy is steep. Remember, you will not remember the love you had for her. You will only know the absence of it." The palace seemed to grow colder as they neared it. Nuru could feel the power of the ocean god pressing in around him, a vast, ancient force that would never be swayed by mortal desires. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He had made his choice. He would pay the price. As they reached the palace gates, they opened with a low groan, revealing an expansive hall of living coral, bathed in a greenish glow. At the far end of the hall stood a throne made of the darkest coral, carved with intricate patterns of waves and sea creatures. Seated upon it was the ocean god. The god of the ocean was an immense being, both terrifying and majestic. His skin shimmered with the colors of the sea, dark blues, deep greens, and the pale silver of moonlight. His eyes glowed like twin orbs of stormy water, and his long, flowing hair resembled the currents of the deepest parts of the ocean. He looked down at Nuru with an expression of calm authority. "You come to me, mortal, to bargain for a life that is not yours to keep," the god's voice resonated through the water. "You come to bargain with the ocean, but know this, the sea claims what it desires. There are no true bargains in the depths." Nuru's voice shook, but he stood firm. "I come to save the woman I love. I will give anything. I will pay the price." The ocean god's lips curled into a knowing smile. "You think you understand the price, but you do not. The cost is far greater than you realize. You wish to save her, but you will lose yourself in the process. You will forget the love that binds you, and you will walk the world alone, with only the memory of emptiness to guide you." "I accept," Nuru said, his voice resolute. Azima watched from a distance, her face a mixture of pain and understanding. She knew that this was the moment that would change Nuru's life forever. She had seen it happen to others, and now, it was his turn to pay the price. There was no turning back. No one ever truly returned from the ocean god's bargain unchanged. The god's eyes narrowed as he studied Nuru. "Very well. You have made your choice. You will save her, but in doing so, you will forget everything that you are. You will forget your village, your family, your love for Sod. And when you return to the surface, you will no longer be the men who left." Nuru's heart wrenched, but he did not flinch. "I will save her." The ocean god raised his hands, and the water around them began to swirl in a dizzying pattern. The ocean seemed to bend and twist around Nuru, pulling him into its depths. The world blurred, and his body was lifted as if weightless, carried by the immense power of the sea. In a moment of intense pressure, Nuru felt his memories begin to unravel. Images of his childhood, the laughter of his friends, his family's faces, they all began to fade like mist in the morning sun. The more the ocean god's power enveloped him, the more those memories slipped from his grasp. Sada's face, once so vivid in his mind, became blurred and indistinct. Sada's form, still limp in his arms, began to glow with an ethereal light. Her transformation was reaching its final stage, and Nuru could feel the sea's magic pulling her deeper into its grasp. She was becoming a creature of the deep, a bride of the ocean god. Azima, standing at the edge of the hall, watched with a heavy heart. She knew what would come next, the price that Nuru had just paid. And as he stood there, empty of all that he had once loved, Azima's heart ached for him. She had walked this path, and she had lost everything, everything that had once made her who she was. With a final, thunderous roar, the ocean god raised his hands, and the water around Nuru and Saad surged violently. The transformation was complete. Saada's form, once human, now radiated an otherworldly glow. Her tail shimmered with a light that could only be described as celestial, her hair flowing like the waves of the ocean itself. She was no longer just a woman, she had become part of the sea, bound to the ocean god forever. Nuru blinked, his mind clouded with the sudden emptiness that washed over him. He looked down at Saad, but her face was no longer the face he knew. It was a beautiful, distant expression, like the sea itself, unreachable, untouchable. "You have saved her," the ocean god said. "But you have lost everything else." Nuru's heart sank as he stared at Saad, but a strange feeling tugged at him. She was familiar, yet distant. He couldn't remember why he had cared for her so much, why he had made this journey. All he knew now was that she was someone he should care for, someone important. But the love, the bond they once shared, was gone. The ocean god's voice rumbled again, this time softer. "It is done. You have paid the price, Nuru. Now, go. The surface awaits." Nuru turned to leave, but as he did, he caught one last glimpse of Azima. She swam toward him, her silver tail glowing faintly in the dim light. "Be careful, Nuru," she said quietly. "The ocean has a way of claiming what it wants, and sometimes, it takes far more than you expect." As Nuru ascended toward the surface, he felt a strange, unspoken emptiness fill the space where his memories had once been. He didn't remember who he had been. He didn't remember the love he had for Saad. But somehow, he still felt an undeniable pull toward her. The ocean was vast, and its secrets ran deeper than anyone could understand. Nuru floated toward the surface, the ocean swallowing him in its embrace, yet leaving him untouched by its warmth or cold. As his body broke through the surface, the sharp, salty air bit at his skin, but it didn't feel like it should. His senses were dulled. The world, once vibrant with the laughter of his village, now seemed distant, out of reach. He couldn't place the feeling, but it was there, an emptiness that whispered to him constantly, reminding him of something lost. He surfaced fully, gasping for air, but instead of the familiar shores of his village, all he saw were the vast, open waters stretching endlessly before him. The village was nowhere in sight. It was as if the ocean had stolen his bearings, along with his memories. Azima had warned him. She had warned him that the price was more than he could bear. Yet, here he was, standing in the waves, with no clear recollection of why he had come. Only the empty feeling remained, like a shadow over his heart. Beside him, Saad floated. No, not Saad. Not anymore. The woman who had been his betrothed now glided effortlessly through the water, her silver tail catching the moonlight, but her eyes were unfamiliar. Cold, distant, as though she no longer saw him as the men she had once known. The sea had claimed her entirely. Nuru, her voice, soft but distant, carried through the water. The way she said his name, it didn't sound like the Saad he had known. This Saad was someone else. Someone foreign. "You saved me." But her words had no warmth. No recognition. She didn't look at him with the same love she had before. She didn't smile the way she once did when she had caught him looking at her. There was a coldness, like a layer of ice that separated them now. Nuru felt it too, though he couldn't explain why. "I did," he said, his voice hoarse, almost confused. Saad turned away, her gaze drifting back to the vast, endless sea. "You came to me because you loved me." But now, she trailed off, her voice growing quieter. "You have forgotten." He wanted to deny it, to tell her that he remembered, that his love for her had not vanished. But the words caught in his throat. He didn't remember. He didn't remember anything, except the undeniable emptiness that gnawed at his soul. There was a space in his heart where the love for her used to reside, but now it felt like a hollow wound. He couldn't bring himself to fill it. His words faltered, I thought I had to save you. I thought I had to come back for you. Saad looked at him over her shoulder, her eyes piercing him with a look of profound sadness. But now you don't need to, Nuru. The sea has claimed me. I am no longer the woman you loved. And I cannot be the woman you need me to be. Her words shattered something inside him, though he didn't understand what. He was standing there, in the water, with a woman who looked like Saad but felt like someone else entirely. And he couldn't understand why he couldn't remember her touch, her smile, or the warmth of her voice. His heart felt like a stranger's. Azima, Nuru whispered, turning toward the silver-haired mermaid who had guided him into this world. What have I done? Why can't I remember? Azima swam closer, her eyes filled with empathy. She had watched him go through the very same pain she had once suffered. The same curse. Nuru, the ocean god, doesn't simply erase memories. He distorts them, changes them, so that you can never go back. You are the person you are now because of the choice you made. I didn't choose this, Nuru said urgently, his eyes wide with desperation. I didn't choose to forget. I didn't choose to be this empty. Azima's face softened, her voice gentle. No, you didn't choose it. But the ocean claimed you as it claimed me. I thought I could save the one I loved. And I lost him forever. What you feel, Nuru, is the same loss. The ocean demands its toll. Nuru's breath quickened. Then there's no way back. There's no way to fix this. Azima's gaze dropped to the surface of the water, the ripples catching the light of the stars. No. There's no undoing the bargain. Once the ocean god's mercy is given, it can never be taken back. Not unless you make a greater sacrifice. Sacrifice. Nuru's voice was a mere whisper. His heart pounded, the silence around them deepening. What kind of sacrifice could undo this? Could I give up everything, even myself? Azima looked at him sharply, her silvery eyes searching his face, as if trying to read his soul. You would have to give up your humanity, Nuru. Your memories, your life, everything you once were. You would have to dive into the deepest parts of the sea, where even the ocean god cannot follow, and there, you would face the ultimate cost. The god has rules, there is always a price. But whether it would be enough to bring her back, I cannot say. The weight of her words hung in the air between them, the sea whispering all around them, as if it were listening, waiting. Nuru clenched his fists, feeling the surge of emotion welling up within him, something primal and urgent. He couldn't let go of her. Not like this. Not after everything they had shared. I'll do it, he said, his voice steady. I'll make whatever sacrifice it takes. I can't live with this emptiness. Azima regarded him with a mix of sorrow and understanding. The ocean is not kind, Nuru. It is a heartless force. If you go down this path, there is no turning back. And you might not like what you find. I don't care, he replied, determination creeping into his voice. I can't leave her like this. As he turned back toward Saad, the woman who had once been his future, now an eternal prisoner of the sea, he realized something. She had become part of the ocean, and there was nothing left to be done. She was lost to the depths. But there was still hope. Hope that he could somehow retrieve what had been stolen from them both. Hope that he could undo the bargain, reverse the god's mercy. But it would not come without cost. Not without a final sacrifice. Azima swam beside him as he made his decision. You are not the first to try and defy the ocean. But many have failed, and those who return, they return as something else. The journey ahead would be perilous, and the sacrifices immense. But Nuru had already lost so much. The cost was irrelevant now. He would face the ocean god once more, even if it meant the end of everything he had ever known. And as he swam deeper into the night, toward the shadows of the abyss, the last thing he heard was Azima's voice, soft and distant, "Be careful, Nuru. The ocean does not forget. And neither does the heart." The night stretched out like an endless expanse of dark water, the moonlight shimmering faintly on the surface above them. Nuru, his heart heavy with resolve, swam beside Azima, feeling the pull of the ocean beneath them, an unseen force that seemed to drag him deeper with every passing moment. He could not turn back now, not when Sada's fate was tangled with the very waves that surrounded them. Azima glided through the water effortlessly, her silvery tail flicking with grace as if she belonged to the sea. She had once been human, just like Nuru, and her pain, her betrayal, had shaped the mermaid she had become. And now, Nuru understood, he was following in the very same footsteps, walking down the path Azima had once tread, guided by love, but blinded by it as well. "Where are we going, Azima?" Nuru asked, his voice thick with the weight of his thoughts. He knew the ocean was vast and mysterious, but there had to be a place where the ocean god resided, a place where the answers he sought could be found. Azima glanced at him, her silver eyes reflecting the cold light of the stars above. "The ocean is a vast and endless world. But there is one place where the god of the sea resides, where his power is strongest. It is a place few have ever seen, and those who have, they do not return the same." The sea around them began to change. The currents grew colder, the water darker, as if they were leaving the world of the living behind and descending into the domain of the ocean god. The creatures that once swam nearby, colorful fish and playful dolphins, began to vanish, replaced by shadows of creatures that Nuru could not name, creatures of the deep that moved in eerie silence, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. For a moment, Nuru felt a pang of doubt, a flicker of fear. He had come so far, sacrificed so much already. Would it be worth it? Would he find Sad again, or would he be lost to the sea like so many before him? Azima's voice broke through his thoughts. "You must be strong now, Nuru. The ocean is not forgiving. It will test you, just as it tested me. But you have something I did not. You have a choice." Nuru turned to her, confused. "A choice? What do you mean?" Azima's expression softened, and for the first time, there was a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. "When I was human, I loved a man as you love Sad. He was kind, strong, and we dreamed of a future together. But the ocean, it wanted him. It took him, just as it took Sad. And I made the same choice you are making. I followed him into the depths, thinking I could save him. But I didn't. I lost myself in the process. And when I came back, I was no longer the woman I had been." Nuru's heart tightened. "But you were human once. You know what it means to love. You understand." Azima nodded solemnly, her silvery hair floating around her like a halo. "I understand. But you must remember, Nuru, love alone cannot save you. You cannot go into the depths expecting to find what you once had. The sea will twist and reshape everything. What you once knew may never return." Nuru swallowed hard, his resolve hardening. "I will face whatever comes. I must bring her back. I can't lose her." Azima didn't respond immediately, but Nuru could feel her gaze upon him. She had lived this. She had suffered the consequences of chasing a love that the ocean demanded. She had paid a price. And now, she was trying to warn him, to prepare him for what lay ahead. The water grew colder still, the pressure mounting with each passing moment. Nuru's chest tightened as they descended further into the depths. The darkness here was unlike anything he had ever known. It wasn't just a physical absence of light, it was a deep, suffocating silence that pressed against his mind, threatening to swallow him whole. "Stay close," Azima whispered. This is where the ocean god's realm begins. The sea around them shifted, and suddenly, a great chasm appeared before them, a swirling vortex of water, pulling them inward. Nuru felt his body being drawn toward it, as though the sea itself had decided to test his will. He fought against it, using every ounce of strength to swim against the current, but it was futile. The vortex was too powerful. "You must go willingly," Azima said, her voice barely audible over the roar of the water. "The god will not grant your wish unless you surrender yourself to him. You cannot fight it." Nuru hesitated, fear rising in his chest. But as he glanced at Azima, he saw something in her eyes, a mixture of sorrow and understanding. She had been through this. She had been lost to the sea, and she had paid the price for her choices. With a deep breath, Nuru let go of his resistance. He allowed himself to be pulled into the chasm, the darkness swallowing him whole. For what felt like an eternity, Nuru spiraled downward through the cold, dark waters. He had no idea how far he had gone, how much time had passed. The only thing he could hear was the sound of his own heartbeat, the pulse of life that still remained within him. And then, suddenly, the darkness lifted. Before him, an enormous cavern appeared, illuminated by an eerie glow. The walls were lined with strange, bioluminescent creatures that cast flickering shadows across the vast expanse. At the center of the cavern was a throne, made of coral and stone, bathed in an ethereal light. Sitting upon the throne was a figure, a being that seemed to be both human and something else entirely. The ocean god. He was neither old nor young, his features timeless and otherworldly. His skin shimmered like the surface of the sea, shifting between shades of blue and green. His eyes, though, were the most unsettling. They were deep, bottomless pools, filled with the weight of centuries, of forgotten truths. "You have come," the ocean god's voice echoed, deep and rumbling, like the sound of a distant storm. "Why do you disturb my realm, mortal?" Nuru stood before him, trembling but determined. "I came for her. I came for Saad. She is trapped, transformed. I want her back." The ocean god's lips curled into a smile, but it was not a kind smile. "You think you can undo what has been done? The sea does not yield to mortals. What you seek has a cost. What are you willing to pay?" Nuru's mind raced. The cost, he had heard the warning. Azima had spoken of sacrifice. But what was he willing to give? Could he truly sacrifice everything he had left? "I will give everything," Nuru said, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his insides. "I will give myself, my memories, my humanity, everything, to bring her back." The ocean god regarded him with cold, calculating eyes. "Very well. But remember this, mortal, once the price is paid, there is no turning back." Nuru nodded, his heart heavy but resolute. He had made his choice. The god raised his hand, and the waters around them began to churn violently. The air crackled with a strange energy, and Nuru felt a sharp, searing pain pierce through his chest, as if something within him was being torn away. The world blurred around him, and for a moment, he thought he might lose himself entirely. Then, just as quickly as it had come, the pain subsided. Nuru gasped for breath, feeling the weight of the ocean press against him, as if it had claimed him as its own. "You have made your sacrifice," the ocean god said, his voice reverberating through Nuru's very soul. "Now, go. Find her." And with that, Nuru was once again plunged into the depths of the sea. Nuru's mind swirled as he descended further into the ocean. The pain from his sacrifice lingered, but the weight of it was lessened, replaced by a strange, unfamiliar sense of clarity. The world around him had changed. The water, which had once seemed cold and distant, now felt alive, thrumming with energy. It whispered secrets to him, and for the first time, Nuru felt connected to the vast, mysterious depths of the sea. Azima swam beside him, her silvery hair trailing behind her like a shimmering comet. Her once distant expression had softened, a faint glimmer of sadness in her eyes. It was as if the ocean had claimed her, just as it had claimed him, and now, they were bound together in a way neither fully understood. "We are close," Ozima said, her voice low and almost reverent. "The ocean god has marked you. He has granted you what you sought, but remember, Nuru, what you have given up will never return." Nuru clenched his fists, the weight of her words sinking in. He had promised to give up everything, and though he hadn't fully understood the cost at the time, he now felt the truth of it in every fiber of his being. His memories, his humanity, everything he had been, it was slipping away, bit by bit, as he ventured deeper into the realm of the ocean god. But he couldn't stop. He had to save Sod. Ahead, a strange light flickered in the distance, growing brighter with each passing moment. The water around it was thick with a mist, as though the very essence of the sea had conspired to create a veil between the world of the living and the world of the gods. Nuru's heart pounded in his chest as they swam closer to the glowing light, the sensation of being drawn to it like a moth to a flame. Finally, they reached it. In the center of the glowing mist was a massive underwater palace, its walls made of shimmering coral, its towers stretching high into the depths like jagged peaks. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a place that seemed to exist outside of time itself. The palace pulsed with the energy of the ocean, and Nuru could feel the presence of something ancient and powerful lurking within its walls. Ozima stopped before the entrance, her eyes narrowing as she gazed at the palace. "This is where it all began for me. This is where I made my choice, where I lost everything." Nuru looked at her, confused. "What do you mean? You said you were once human, but why didn't you tell me more about what happened? About the price you paid?" Ozima's gaze softened, and she swam closer to him. "Because you were not ready to hear it. You are like I was, Nuru, driven by love, blinded by it. You are willing to sacrifice anything to save her, but what if the price is too high? What if you lose yourself in the process?" Nuru felt the weight of her words, but he couldn't back away now. "I have to save her. I can't lose her. She's everything." Ozima nodded slowly, her eyes filled with a deep, knowing sadness. "I know. I felt the same way. But remember, once you cross this threshold, you cannot turn back. What you find inside will change everything. Are you ready for that?" Nuru didn't hesitate. "I have no choice." With a final, lingering glance at Ozima, he swam toward the entrance of the palace. The water seemed to part before him, as though the ocean itself was welcoming him into its heart. Inside, the palace was even more wondrous than he could have imagined. The walls were adorned with glowing pearls and intricate carvings, depicting scenes of the sea's creation, its endless power, and the lives it had claimed. The floor was covered with soft, undulating seaweed, and the air was thick with the scent of salt and mystery. At the far end of the grand hall, on a throne of coral and pearl, sat a figure draped in robes made of sea foam. His eyes glowed like the depths of the ocean, and his long hair flowed around him like a river of midnight. The ocean god. "You have come, mortal," the ocean god's voice boomed, resonating through the entire palace. "You have made your choice. Now, you must face the consequences." Nuru's heart raced. He had come for Sod, and he would not leave without her. But as he stood before the god, he felt the weight of his sacrifice more than ever. The god's gaze pierced him, as though he could see straight through him, down to the very core of his being. "I came for her," Nuru said, his voice trembling but strong. "I want to save her. I want to bring her back." The ocean god's lips curled into a smile, but it was not a kind one. "You ask for something that cannot be given lightly. Sod has been claimed by the sea, just as you have been. She is no longer the woman you once knew. She is a bride of the ocean now." Nuru felt a cold chill run through him. "No. That can't be true. She was taken in a storm. She's not lost forever." The ocean god's gaze deepened. "The sea does not take what it does not want. Sod was chosen, and she belongs to the depths now. She has become part of the ocean's eternal cycle. Nuru's breath caught in his throat. I don't care what she's become. I will take her back. I will not leave her here. The god raised a hand, and the water around Nuru began to swirl, creating a vortex that pulled him off his feet. You are a fool, mortal. You think you can defy the will of the ocean. The sea is not so easily undone. Nuru struggled against the current, but it was no use. The power of the ocean god was too great. He was being dragged toward the center of the palace, toward the dark, swirling vortex that pulsed with unnatural energy. And then, just as quickly as it had come, the current stopped. In the center of the vortex, Nuru saw her. Sod. But she was no longer the woman he had known. Her hair, once dark and flowing, was now silver like Azima's, and her skin shimmered with an otherworldly glow. Her eyes, once full of warmth and love, were now distant, cold, and filled with the endless depths of the ocean. She was no longer his Sod. The ocean god's voice echoed around him. She has chosen, just as you will soon choose. The sea takes what it wants, and it never gives back. Nuru's heart shattered. This was not the woman he had loved. This was a creature of the sea, bound by forces he could not understand, a creature who had been transformed by the ocean's relentless pull. He had come so far, sacrificed so much, and yet, he could not save her. Not like this. Azima swam beside him, her expression filled with pity and regret. You must make a choice, Nuru. You can try to take her back, but in doing so, you will lose everything that you are. You will become like me, bound to the sea forever. Or you can walk away, and let her remain where she is. Nuru's mind raced. There had to be another way. There had to be a way to save her, to return her to the life they once had. But as he looked at Sod, he knew the truth. She was no longer the woman he had loved. And the sea would not let her go. Nuru stood frozen, caught between two worlds, the realm of the living and the depths of the sea. The sight of Sod, transformed into a creature of the ocean, sent waves of disbelief crashing over him. Her once warm and familiar face was now a distant mask, her eyes empty, as if the person he had known was lost beneath the layers of salt and time. Azima's voice was a soft murmur beside him, but it cut through his thoughts like a knife. You cannot save her as she is. The ocean's claim is unbreakable. She is a sea bride now, bound to the ocean god's will. Nuru's chest tightened with a mix of grief and desperation. He had given so much, his humanity, his memories, his very soul. He had crossed into the depths of the unknown, sacrificed everything, and yet, it was still not enough. What if I fight the ocean god? What if I take her back by force? His voice trembled with the weight of the question, but it was all he could think of. Surely, the ocean god could be defeated. He had to believe that. Azima's gaze softened with sorrow, her silver hair drifting in the water like tendrils of a ghostly memory. You could try, Nuru. But know this, the ocean is not like any enemy you have faced before. It is infinite, untamable. If you choose to fight it, you will lose more than you can imagine. You will become what I became, a prisoner to the sea. Nuru looked back at Sod. She was still there, floating like a wraith in the shimmering glow of the palace. His heart screamed out to her, and for a brief moment, he thought he saw a flicker of recognition in her eyes. A flash of the woman he had loved. But it was gone almost as quickly as it had come. Is she still in there? Is there any part of the woman I loved left? Nuru's voice cracked as he spoke, the truth settling over him like a crushing weight. Azima hesitated, her eyes flickering to the ocean god, who sat upon his throne, his gaze like the darkened abyss itself. There are remnants of her. Fragments of the person you knew. But the longer she remains, the less of her will be left. The ocean consumes, Nuru. It takes everything, until nothing is left. Nuru's heart pounded in his chest. His mind raced through every possibility, every option. But there was only one choice that made sense. He had to save her. He couldn't let her slip away into the depths, to be lost to him forever. The ocean god had taken so much already, he couldn't allow it to take her too. He turned to Ozima, his eyes burning with determination. Then I will do what it takes. I will fight the ocean god. If I have to lose everything, then so be it. But I will not let her remain here. Ozima's face darkened, her silver hair swirling around her like the storm that had first taken Sod from the shores of the village. You don't understand, Nuru. Fighting the ocean god is not a matter of will. It is a test of sacrifice. And you have already given much. What more are you willing to lose? Nuru's eyes were hard, his grip tightening on the sword at his side, a weapon he had once used to defend his village, now a symbol of his fight to reclaim what was his. I will lose everything. My soul. My humanity. Whatever it takes. Ozima's expression softened, a single tear glistening in her eye. Then you will face the god, and you will see the cost of your decision. With that, she swam toward the throne of the ocean god, her movements fluid and graceful, as though she was once again the woman she had been before the sea had claimed her. Nuru followed, the weight of his decision pressing down on him with every stroke. The ocean god gazed at them, his eyes like black pools, reflecting the endless depths of the sea. You come for her, mortal, he boomed, his voice echoing through the palace like a thunderclap. But you do not understand the price of such a quest. Sod belongs to me now. She is my bride, and no man, no mortal, can take what is mine. Nuru stepped forward, his sword drawn, his heart beating with the rhythm of defiance. I don't care what you claim her to be. I will take her back. She was never meant to be yours. The ocean god's smile was cold and knowing, his deep voice a rumble of thunder. Very well, mortal. If you think you can defeat me, then prove it. But be warned, this will not be a simple contest of strength. The sea takes all who challenge it. The cost of this decision will be greater than you can bear. Nuru's grip tightened on the hilt of his sword. He wasn't afraid. Not anymore. He had already lost so much. What more was there to fear? Ozima swam back to his side, her eyes filled with an ancient sorrow. You do not know what you are facing, Nuru. The ocean god will not give up Sod easily. The sea does not work on mortal terms. I do not care, Nuru spat, his voice full of resolve. I've made my choice. I will save her. The ocean god's laughter echoed around them, a sound that reverberated through the very walls of the palace. So be it. But know this, you will face more than you expect. The ocean's wrath is not something you can simply fight off. It will break you, Nuru. It will break you until there is nothing left. As the ocean god's voice faded, the water around them began to churn and boil, the temperature rising in an instant. Waves of salt and fury crashed into Nuru, pulling him under the water's surface. The power of the ocean surged around him, testing his resolve, pushing him to the brink of his endurance. But Nuru fought back. He fought with every ounce of strength he had left. He fought for Sod. He fought for love. And yet, even as he fought, he could feel it, the crushing weight of the ocean's power bearing down on him. The sea was relentless. The sea was unforgiving. The sea was everything. Nuru's breath came in gasps, the water swirling around him, pushing him deeper into the abyss. He couldn't see, couldn't hear, only feel the pressure of the sea closing in on him. It was as if the very ocean itself was trying to swallow him whole, to crush him beneath its endless expanse. But even as the ocean pressed in, Nuru refused to give up. He swam against the current, his muscles screaming in protest, his body heavy with exhaustion. He had to save Sod. He had to fight the ocean god. Ozima's voice broke through the chaos, distant but clear. Nuru, you cannot defeat the ocean. It is older than time itself. You must stop before it destroys you. But Nuru didn't listen. His vision blurred as he pushed through the waves, the world around him a swirling whirlpool of power and fury. He could see the faint silhouette of Sod in the distance, her silvery form illuminated by the glow of the ocean god's throne. She was so close. He could almost reach her. But as he moved closer, the sea seemed to respond, its fury intensifying with each stroke. The water grew colder, the current stronger, and Nuru could feel his body weakening, his strength slipping away. He was losing. Nuru's heart hammered in his chest, his muscles aching with exhaustion, but his determination never wavered. Sod was so close, but the sea was growing fiercer with every passing moment. It wasn't just the strength of the ocean itself that pressed against him, but the weight of the god's power, a force so ancient, so vast, that it seemed to mock his struggle. The current pulled at him like an unseen hand, dragging him further from his beloved. Azima's voice reached him again, more urgent this time, tinged with a note of desperation. Nuru, stop. You don't understand. If you continue, the ocean will take everything from you. But Nuru's mind was clouded with only one thought, Sod. He couldn't let her slip away again. Not like this. Not to the depths where she would become something else, something not even the woman he loved would recognize. He had come this far, risking everything, and he couldn't turn back now. With a final burst of strength, he surged forward, cutting through the waves as though the ocean itself was fighting against him. The distance between him and Sod grew shorter, until finally, he reached her. She was suspended in the water, her once familiar features now so distant, so foreign. Her body was now an embodiment of the sea, scales glistening in the faint light, her long hair flowing around her like a silver halo. Her eyes, once filled with warmth, were now cold and hollow. It was as if she was no longer the Sod he knew, but a being of the ocean, one who belonged to the depths. His chest tightened with a pain so sharp it felt as if his very soul was being torn apart. Sod, he cried out, reaching for her. But as his hand touched her, a coldness seeped into his skin, an unnatural chill that froze him to the core. For a moment, her eyes flickered, as if something of the woman he had loved remained beneath the surface. Nuru, she whispered, her voice faint and broken, like the sound of waves crashing against the shore. But then, as quickly as it had appeared, the recognition faded, and her eyes went blank once again. Nuru's heart shattered as he pulled her into his arms, his mind racing. She was still in there, wasn't she? Somewhere, beneath the transformation, the love they shared still existed. Azima appeared beside him, her silver hair glowing in the dark waters. Nuru, you must leave. The ocean god will not let you take her. But Nuru shook his head, his grip tightening around Sod. I can't leave her. I won't leave her. Azima's face twisted in sorrow. Then you will become like me, Nuru. A prisoner of the sea. You will lose yourself just as I did. Your love will be swallowed by the ocean's hunger. His eyes met hers, and for the first time, he saw the depth of her pain. The transformation, the choice she had made, she was trying to warn him, to save him from the same fate. You were human once, Nuru said, his voice a whisper of realization. You made the same choice I'm making, didn't you? Azima's eyes darkened, her expression full of regret. Yes. I thought I could save the one I loved. I thought love would be enough. But it wasn't. The ocean does not work on mortal terms. I sacrificed myself, my humanity, my soul. And now, I am no longer who I was. Nuru felt the weight of her words like a heavy anchor sinking into his chest. Is there no way to save her without becoming like you? He asked, his voice filled with desperation. Azima shook her head slowly. The only way to save her is to let her go. The ocean god's claim is eternal. If you try to take her, you will lose everything. Just as I did. Nuru's mind spun. He couldn't let go. He couldn't lose Sod, not after everything he had endured, not after coming this far. But the truth in Azima's words gnawed at him. The sea was an insatiable beast, and it would take everything from him. "Sod," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I love you. I will always love you." Her gaze softened for a moment, a tear slipping from her eye as her hand reached for his. But even as she touched him, the ocean god's power surged once again, pulling her away from him. Azima grabbed Nuru's arm, pulling him back. "It's too late," she said, her voice strained with emotion. "You cannot save her. But you can still save yourself." Nuru turned to Azima, his chest tightening with the weight of her words. "I can't live without her. I won't." Azima's face softened with a quiet sadness. "Then you will die in the depths, just as I did." The ocean god's voice rumbled from behind them, a deep and terrifying growl that sent shivers down Nuru's spine. "Enough. You have had your chance, mortal. You should never have come." With a wave of his hand, the water around them surged, threatening to drag Nuru and Sod into the abyss. The sea itself seemed to rise, a massive, inescapable force that crushed everything in its path. But Nuru refused to give up. His love for Sod burned brighter than the sea's wrath, stronger than any fear that tried to consume him. He looked back at Azima, her silver eyes full of sorrow, and then to Sod, her form fading into the depths. "I'll save you, Sod," he vowed. "No matter the cost." The ocean god's presence grew even stronger, his power like an avalanche of water crashing down on them. Nuru's muscles strained as he fought against the current, his body pulled in every direction by the sheer force of the sea's fury. Azima's grip on him tightened, her eyes wide with terror. "Nuru, please, you don't understand. The ocean god is not just a creature of power. He is the embodiment of the sea itself. You cannot win against him. Not without losing everything." But Nuru's eyes were fixed on Sod, her form growing dimmer and more distant with each passing moment. He could hear her faint voice calling his name, a whisper lost in the roar of the ocean. She needed him. He had to save her. Azima's voice cut through his thoughts once again. "Please, Nuru. Let her go. The ocean will take you if you do not listen." But Nuru's resolve only grew stronger. He had come this far, and he wouldn't give up now. He wouldn't let the ocean claim her. Not without a fight. With every ounce of strength he had left, he surged forward, pushing past the ocean god's power, his sword raised high. The sea seemed to bend and twist around him, its fury mounting with every stroke. And then, as he reached the ocean god's throne, he felt it. A wave of dark energy, so powerful, so vast, that it threatened to tear him apart. The ocean god's eyes locked with his, filled with ancient wrath. "You should have stayed on the shore, mortal," the ocean god said, his voice a thunderous crash. "Now, you will pay the price." The ocean god's voice echoed through the water, shaking the very foundation of the world around Nuru. His heart raced as he fought to stay afloat, his grip on his sword tightening. He had come this far, through treacherous waters and dangerous paths, but now he was faced with the god himself. The ocean god's massive form towered before him, dark and all-encompassing. His eyes were pools of blackness, and his voice reverberated with the crushing force of the deep ocean itself. "You dare challenge me," the god rumbled, his voice vibrating through the water. Nuru, his body trembling with exhaustion, lifted his sword, its blade gleaming in the dim, watery light. "I won't leave without her," he said, his voice steady, though it faltered slightly under the god's immense power. Azima, her face pale with fear, swam beside him. "Nuru, you cannot defeat him. You cannot win this fight," she whispered, her voice pleading. But Nuru didn't listen. His heart was consumed by love for Sod, and nothing, not even the god of the ocean, could take that away from him. The ocean god's laughter echoed around them, dark and menacing. "Love? You think love will save you?" He sneered. "The sea doesn't care for love. It only takes, consumes, and destroys. Just like it will do to you." Suddenly, the water around Nuru began to churn violently. Waves rose around him like towering walls, threatening to crush him beneath their weight. But Nuru stood firm, his eyes locked on Saad. Azima grabbed his arm, her silver hair swirling in the current. "Please, Nuru," she begged, her voice desperate. "You cannot save her by fighting the ocean. You can only save yourself." Nuru's gaze softened as he looked back at her. "I don't care," he said, his voice quiet but resolute. "I won't let her go. I won't let the sea take her." Azima's eyes filled with sorrow. "Then you will die in her place," she whispered, her words like a death sentence. As the ocean god's power surged around them, Nuru felt a strange warmth in his chest. It was a flicker of hope, a small flame that refused to be extinguished. And with that flame, he made a choice. He would face the ocean god, no matter the cost. Nuru's chest burned as he pushed against the relentless force of the ocean god's power. Every movement felt like a battle against an unstoppable force, yet the flicker of hope in his heart kept him going. He wouldn't, let Saad slip away into the abyss. Not after everything. Azima's grip on his arm tightened. "Nuru, listen to me. You're making the same mistake I made. The ocean doesn't care for love. It only demands sacrifice. And if you don't turn back, you'll lose yourself just like I did." Her voice wavered, and Nuru could hear the pain in it. She wasn't just warning him, she was pleading with him, trying to stop him from making the same mistake that had cost her everything. But it was too late. His decision had been made. "I won't let her become the ocean's prisoner," he said, his voice low but firm, fighting to be heard over the thunderous waves. Azima's silver eyes filled with sorrow as she let go of his arm. "Then you're already lost," she whispered. Suddenly, a surge of water slammed into Nuru, knocking him off his feet. His sword slipped from his grasp, and he felt himself being pulled down into the depths. The sea was relentless, pulling him toward its cold, dark heart, dragging him further and further away from Saad. With every heartbeat, the pressure of the water increased, threatening to crush him. The ocean god's laughter boomed like thunder, mocking him from above. "You think you can defy me, mortal," the god's voice thundered. "You are nothing but a fleeting speck, a mortal who dares challenge the eternal. The ocean belongs to me, and so will you." Nuru fought against the crushing pressure of the water, his limbs heavy with exhaustion, but he couldn't stop the pull. He had come so far, and now the sea was dragging him into its dark embrace. Azima, struggling against the current, reached out to him, her face filled with fear. "Nuru, please. You need to understand. The ocean god does not let go of what he claims." But Nuru only stared back at her, his eyes filled with determination. "I've come too far to turn back," he said, his voice barely a whisper against the roar of the sea. With every ounce of strength he had left, he pushed forward, struggling to move toward Saad, who remained just out of reach. The sea lashed at him, the water battering his body, but his love for Saad burned brighter than the god's wrath. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he reached her. Her form was fading, her once beautiful features now twisted and pale, her body a blend of human and sea, her skin now covered in shimmering scales that glowed faintly in the depths. She looked at him with wide, unblinking eyes, and for a moment, Nuru thought he saw a flicker of recognition. "Saad," he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. "I'm here. I won't let you go." She blinked slowly, and the faintest trace of her former self flickered in her gaze. "Nuru." His heart pounded in his chest as he reached out to her, but before he could touch her, the ocean god's voice roared once more, shaking the very foundations of the sea. "Enough," the ocean god bellowed, his voice crashing down like a tidal wave. "She is mine now, mortal. She has become one with the sea, and you will never take her from me." In that moment, the full weight of the god's power descended upon Nuru. The water around him seemed to swirl, shifting into an unyielding force, pulling him away from Saad. No matter how hard he tried to reach her, No matter how desperate he became, the sea was far stronger. "Let me go," Nuru shouted, his voice breaking. "She's not yours to keep. I love her. I'll do anything to save her." The ocean god's laughter echoed through the depths, louder than ever. "Love means nothing to me. It's power I seek, and the ocean is mine to command." Azima's voice cut through the chaos, her words sharp and desperate. "Nuru, it's too late. You cannot fight the ocean god. If you continue, you'll lose everything. You'll become like me. You'll never be human again." But Nuru couldn't stop. The thought of Saad slipping further and further from him was unbearable. She needed him. He had to save her. Suddenly, a brilliant, blinding light filled the depths. It was the ocean god's full power, surrounding him and Saad in a bubble of searing energy. Nuru gasped, his skin burning as the light seared into him, and for a moment, he felt as if he were being torn apart. "Nuru." Sada's voice rang out, her voice filled with pain and sorrow. Her eyes locked with his, and in that moment, he saw the love they once shared, before the sea had claimed her. "I love you," she whispered, her voice soft and fragile. "But you can't save me." Nuru's heart clenched, and his whole body trembled. "No. No, I won't leave you here. I won't let the sea have you." The ocean god's laughter roared once more, louder than before. "Foolish mortal," he mocked. "You cannot save her. You cannot fight me. You will join her in the depths." As the light from the ocean god intensified, Nuru felt himself weakening. The power was overwhelming, and the current's pull grew stronger, pulling him further from Saad. He couldn't hold on any longer. But then, just as he was about to give in to the god's power, a quiet voice broke through the chaos, the voice of Azima. "Nuru," she whispered, her voice like a soft current in the storm. "There is another way. You must choose." His head spun as he struggled to comprehend her words. "What do you mean?" he gasped. Azima's face appeared beside him, her silver eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and understanding. "You must make the choice I could not. You must choose between her and the sea. If you try to take her, you will both be lost. But if you let her go, you will both have a chance." Nuru's heart broke at her words. He could feel Saad slipping further away, her form fading into the ocean's depths. He reached out to her one final time, but the sea pushed him back. "I love you," he whispered, his voice barely audible against the roar of the ocean. "But I can't lose you like this." As the ocean god's power surged again, Nuru felt his strength leaving him. He could feel his body beginning to fade, like he was being drawn into the ocean's depths. But even as the light dimmed around him, he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't save her. He couldn't stop the ocean. But he could let her go. And in that moment, Nuru made the hardest choice of his life. The sea's grip tightened around Nuru like a vice, but his heart, though heavy with sorrow, remained resolute. As the swirling depths threatened to engulf him, his mind clung to the last fleeting image of Saad, her face, still full of love, even as she slowly merged with the ocean's currents. "I have to let go," he whispered, though the words felt like poison on his tongue. His chest tightened, and a tear escaped his eye, mingling with the salt water of the sea. Azima watched him, her expression unreadable, but her silvery eyes were filled with a sorrow so deep that Nuru could feel the weight of it in his own soul. "Nuru," she said softly, "the ocean god never takes what he doesn't own. It's too late for Saad, but you can still save yourself. Don't make the same mistake I made. The sea, it takes more than you're willing to give." But the pull of the ocean was relentless. Nuru had felt it for too long now. It was as though the sea was whispering promises of vengeance, of power, of eternity. It wanted him, and it wanted Saad. The deeper he went, the closer he came to the god's terrifying grasp. Yet, somewhere beneath all the fear, beneath the crushing weight of the sea's demands, Nuru knew that the time had come to make the choice. He didn't want to, couldn't, lose Sod. But if he didn't let her go now, he might lose everything he ever cared about. "Goodbye, Sod," he whispered through the waters, his voice swallowed by the vast ocean. Suddenly, the light around them flickered. The ocean god's roar grew louder, like an angry storm, as if he were aware of the change in Nuru's resolve. The pressure mounted, and a bright, blinding light consumed Nuru, pulling him into a whirlpool of shimmering waves. In a final act of defiance, Nuru closed his eyes, letting the sea take him, feeling his body slip further and further away from the world he had known. But then something shifted, something within him that neither the god nor the ocean had anticipated. Azima reached for him, her voice trembling, "Nuru, please." Her fingers brushed against his hand, and something strange happened. A warmth spread through his body, a sense of something familiar yet foreign, a tether, like the bond between two souls separated by fate. Before Nuru could comprehend it, Azima's form shimmered, and for a brief moment, she appeared almost human again. The silver in her hair faded, and her face was no longer the one of a mermaid. The transformation was slow at first, like the gradual turn of the tide, but as she drew closer to him, the change was undeniable. "Nuru," she whispered once more, her voice now full of human sorrow. "This is the choice I made. This is the price the ocean demands." Nuru looked at her, confusion mixing with the growing sense of awe. "Azima, what are you saying? What have you done?" She smiled weakly, the human-like warmth in her eyes returning. "I was once like you, a human who fell in love with the sea. I thought I could save someone, much like you. But the ocean, it's too powerful. It doesn't care about love. It only cares about what it takes." The realization struck him like a bolt of lightning. "You," he gasped, his breath catching in his throat. "You were human once." Azima nodded. "I made the mistake of trying to bargain with the ocean god. I thought I could save someone I loved, but in the end, it was I who was taken. The price of my mistake was my humanity." A deep sadness filled her eyes as she looked at Nuru. "But you still have a choice. You can save yourself. You can save the world you came from, the life you knew. You don't have to lose it all. Not like I did." Nuru's mind raced. He could feel the cold fingers of the ocean god tightening around him, and yet, for the first time, the overwhelming power of the sea seemed to shift. It didn't matter anymore if he tried to fight it. What mattered now was his decision, whether to become one with the sea, like Azima had, or whether to try to reclaim his life. But the god would not let him go without one last challenge. A booming voice, deeper and more commanding than anything Nuru had heard before, thundered through the depths of the sea. "Mortal, you think you can defy me? You are mine now, and there is no turning back." The ocean god's voice pulsed through the water like a drumbeat, each word causing the currents to surge violently. The pressure around Nuru's body increased, and his lungs screamed for air. Yet, amidst the chaos, something inside him broke free, a realization. "I can't stay here," Nuru whispered, determination hardening in his heart. "I won't become a prisoner of the sea." Azima reached out, her human-like hand brushing his arm, her expression pained. "Nuru, you don't understand. The ocean will take everything. There's no escaping it once it has chosen you." But he didn't listen to her. The ocean god had already marked him. He could feel the icy grip of its influence over his soul, but there was something stronger now, a pull to live, to return to the world he once knew. He had to fight for that chance. As the god's power surged again, Nuru's mind flashed to the memory of Sod, the girl he had once known, the woman he had loved. He could still feel her love, even in the depths of the sea, even as she was being twisted into something that belonged to the god. He thought of her smile, her laughter, the way she had once looked at him with such hope. The god's voice rumbled again, but this time, it wasn't filled with anger. It was filled with a dark promise. "You will not escape, mortal. You will join her, and you will never know peace again." But Nuru had already made up his mind. "I won't become like you," he spat, his voice filled with defiance. "I'll fight the sea, no matter what." And with that, Nuru made his final choice. The sea roared in fury as he broke free from its grasp, reaching out to Azima for one last moment of connection. But she didn't fight him. Her silver eyes, filled with understanding and regret, met his as she gave him one final, fleeting smile. "You will never forget," she whispered softly, "what the ocean has taken from you." And with that, Nuru swam upwards, feeling the weight of the ocean god's wrath trailing behind him. The ocean's fury didn't subside as Nuru swam towards the surface, but he was no longer afraid. His heart raced with a mixture of desperation and hope, and the weight of Azima's warning gnawed at his soul. The sea wasn't finished with him yet, it would chase him to the ends of the earth if need be. Nuru broke through the surface of the water, gasping for air, his body aching from the strain. The storm had not abated. The sky was dark, thick clouds swirling in an unnatural dance above, and the winds howled like the cries of 1,000 lost souls. The very world seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for him to collapse, to give in. But he couldn't. Not yet. He couldn't allow the sea to claim him. His eyes scanned the horizon, desperate to find land. The village, the life he knew, seemed like a distant memory, and with each passing wave, the sea pulled him farther away from it. He didn't know how much longer he could hold on. His limbs were heavy, his body exhausted from the grueling battle against the ocean's powerful currents. But then, through the storm's chaos, he saw something. A flicker of light. A small flicker, like the flame of a distant lantern. "Land," Nuru muttered to himself, a spark of hope igniting in his chest. He pushed forward, his arms and legs burning with exhaustion as he fought against the unforgiving waters. The storm raged harder, as if the ocean itself didn't want him to leave, but Nuru pushed on, his eyes fixed on the glowing light that grew brighter with every stroke. At last, after what felt like an eternity, Nuru's feet touched solid ground. He staggered onto a rocky shore, the violent waves crashing around him, but he didn't care. He collapsed onto the sand, his chest heaving, his body trembling with exhaustion and cold. He lay there for a moment, staring up at the dark sky, breathing in the salty air. The storm was still raging above, but he had made it. He had escaped. His mind, however, was still heavy with the choices he had made, and those he still had to make. He thought of Saad, her face burning brightly in his memory. And he thought of Azima, her silvery eyes, her warning. The choice had been simple, yet so complicated. What had he truly gained by choosing to leave the sea behind? Would Saad still be alive? Would he ever see her again? Or had he doomed them both? As he lay there, the sound of footsteps reached his ears. Nuru slowly lifted his head, his body stiff from the cold. A figure emerged from the shadows, moving gracefully toward him. She was tall, slender, with dark skin and eyes that glowed faintly in the night like stars. She was a woman, dressed in a flowing gown of deep blue, the color of the ocean's darkest depths. "You've made it," she said softly, her voice like a lullaby, gentle and calm, yet carrying an unmistakable power. "I thought you would." Nuru struggled to his feet, his muscles protesting. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice hoarse. The woman smiled, her teeth gleaming in the moonlight. "I am Dima, a daughter of the sea. You have angered the ocean god, but you've also shown great courage. The sea does not often spare those who defy its will. Did you help me?" Nuru asked, still trying to process the strangeness of the situation. She nodded. "In a way, yes. The ocean doesn't like to lose what it has claimed. But you have made it, for now. You have defied its grip. And that has consequences." Nuru frowned, feeling a chill creep up his spine. "What do you mean?" Dima stepped closer, her gaze steady and unwavering. "You think you've escaped, but the ocean is patient. It will wait for the right moment to claim what is its own. And in the meantime, it will use everything around you to get what it wants. Nuru's heart pounded in his chest. What does that mean for Saad? What about her? Where is she? Dima's expression softened, though her eyes remained as sharp as ever. She is where you left her, but not as you left her. The ocean god has taken her, Nuru. She is no longer the woman you loved. The tides are changing, and Saad will be a part of them. The longer you wait, the further you drift from her. Nuru's heart twisted in his chest. No, he said, his voice cracking. I won't let the ocean take her. I'll fight. I'll do anything to get her back. Dima raised an eyebrow, as though considering his words carefully. Anything, you say? She tilted her head, as if she were studying him. The ocean will test your resolve, Nuru. It will test your love for her. The price to reclaim what was taken, it's not one that can be paid easily. The air around them grew thick with tension. Nuru could feel the weight of her words pressing against him, like the invisible currents that pulled at his soul. What do I need to do? He asked, his voice steady, despite the doubt swirling in his heart. Dima's lips curved into a sad smile. There's a temple, deep within the heart of the ocean, where the god resides. It is guarded by creatures of the deep, beasts and spirits who will test you. If you wish to reclaim her, you must go there. But you will have to sacrifice something more precious than your life. Nuru swallowed hard. What must I sacrifice? Dima's smile faded, and her eyes grew distant. Only you can answer that. But remember, if you choose to enter the god's domain, you may never return. The ocean is not merciful. Nuru clenched his fists. I will go. I will save her. Dima's gaze softened once again. Very well. But remember this, Nuru. The ocean gives, but it always takes back what it has given. You cannot win against it forever. With a final, lingering look, Dima turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving Nuru standing alone on the shore. The storm raged on, but Nuru's resolve was clear. The path was set. He would journey into the heart of the ocean, face whatever dangers awaited him, and reclaim Saad, no matter the cost. But with each step he took toward the sea, he could feel the god's presence lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to claim him once again. The night air was thick with humidity as Nuru stood at the edge of the shoreline, staring into the vast, turbulent sea before him. His clothes clung to his body from the salt and water, his skin still chilled from the hours he spent fighting the storm. Yet his heart burned with a fire that could not be extinguished. He had a goal, a purpose, nothing would stand in his way. Behind him, the flickering lights of the village were but a distant memory, already swallowed by the dark. The elder's words echoed in his mind, but he was no longer swayed by them. Saad had been taken by the sea. He had to retrieve her. The quiet intensity of Dima's words weighed heavily on him, and even though her presence had vanished into the night, a part of him wondered whether he could truly withstand the trials ahead. The ocean, after all, had no mercy. With a determined breath, Nuru waded into the water once more. The cool waves lapped against his skin, as if warning him to turn back. But he didn't listen. His heart was set on the task ahead. He would face whatever challenges the sea sent his way. He had to. Hours passed as Nuru navigated through the shifting tides. The ocean seemed to become alive, pulling him deeper with every stroke. The world above, with its endless storms and darkened sky, seemed to grow distant, as if he were now part of the ocean itself. By the time the moon rose high in the sky, he could barely tell where the land had ended and the water began. The vastness of the sea stretched before him in all its terrifying glory. But somewhere in the distance, a faint glow shimmered beneath the waves, like a beckoning light, an invitation. It was a sign, the temple of the ocean god. Nuru's chest tightened with both dread and determination. This was it. He had come this far. There was no turning back now. As he dove deeper, the ocean became darker, the shadows growing thicker around him. The creatures of the deep, both beautiful and terrifying, passed by him like fleeting thoughts in the water, their movements graceful, almost hypnotic. He could feel the currents pulling at him from all directions, trying to draw him into their depths. The air grew colder as he descended, his breath growing short. But there, in the farthest reaches of the ocean's embrace, he saw it. A structure, rising from the abyss, a grand temple carved into the very bones of the sea floor. Its towers seemed to stretch toward the surface, their jagged edges illuminated by a soft, ethereal glow. Nuru swam toward it, his mind set on the task at hand. The temple loomed large in his vision, its entrance flanked by towering statues of sea serpents and other mythical creatures that seemed to watch him with unblinking eyes. As he drew closer, the water around him thickened, almost as though it were resisting his progress. The pressure mounted, pushing against him from all sides. He could feel the sea's power in the very air, thick with the weight of ages. The entrance to the temple was wide open, the shadows inside swallowing him whole as he entered. Inside the temple, the atmosphere was heavy with an ancient, oppressive energy. The water was still, as though time had frozen within these walls. The architecture was both terrifying and awe-inspiring, walls of coral and stone, lit by the faint glow of bioluminescent creatures that drifted lazily through the air. Everything inside felt alive, as though the temple itself was a sentient being, watching him, judging him. Nuru's breath echoed in the vast silence as he swam deeper into the temple. Each stroke of his limbs was met with the faint resistance of the water, as though the very ocean was testing his resolve. His heart pounded in his chest, but his mind was clear. He would not falter. Suddenly, a deep voice echoed through the temple, sending a chill down Nuru's spine. "You come seeking the heart of the sea, mortal. But know this, the ocean does not give freely. You will face trials, each more perilous than the last. Fail, and you will be lost forever." The voice was not one that Nuru could place, but it resonated in his bones. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I'm ready," Nuru said, his voice barely above a whisper, though he felt the weight of his words in the stillness of the temple. A soft laugh reverberated through the water, and the voice returned. "Are you truly ready, Nuru of the land? Your first trial awaits." Without warning, the water around him began to shift violently. The ground trembled beneath his feet as pillars of water shot up, swirling around him, spinning faster and faster. Nuru's eyes widened in alarm as the water formed into towering spires, rising high into the air like liquid stone. Then, from the midst of the swirling water, emerged a creature, half woman, half serpent, her eyes glowing with an unsettling luminescence. Her long, dark hair swirled around her like an extension of the ocean itself, and her voice was like the sound of 1,000 waves crashing on the shore. "Face me, Nuru," she said, her voice both haunting and beautiful. "Prove your strength, or be swept away." The sea serpent woman loomed before him, her body shifting and undulating like the very tides. Her gaze was intense, her power undeniable. The water around them seemed to pulse with life, as though the creature was the embodiment of the sea itself. Nuru didn't hesitate. He summoned every ounce of strength in his body and charged at the serpent, his heart pounding. The water around him surged in response, and he felt the weight of the ocean press in on him, but he refused to relent. As he clashed with the serpent, the water around them swirled into a whirlpool, dragging them both into the depths of the temple. The pressure was immense, but Nuru fought on, pushing against the current with everything he had. Nuru's limbs burned from the effort as he faced the sea serpent, but he wasn't about to give up. He had to prove his worth. He had to show the ocean god that he was strong enough to fight for Sod. The serpent hissed as it struck, sharp claws slicing through the water toward him. Nuru barely managed to dodge, the force of the attack sending waves crashing in all directions. His muscles screamed in protest as he dove beneath the water, evading another attack. "Come, Nuru," the serpent taunted, her voice like the wind before a storm. "You cannot defeat me. No mortal can. The sea belongs to us. It will claim you, as it claimed her." Her words struck a chord within Nuru, but he refused to let doubt creep in. He had to keep fighting. Saad was counting on him. With a roar, Nuru surged forward, his spear thrusting through the water with precision. He struck the serpent, landing a blow that sent her spiraling away. For a moment, there was silence. Then the voice of the ocean god echoed through the temple, shaking the very foundations of the sea. You have passed the first trial, mortal. But beware, this is only the beginning. The deep voice of the ocean god reverberated through the temple, sending chills down Nuru's spine. He had passed the first trial, but there was no time to celebrate. His heart was still heavy with the knowledge that Saada's fate was yet to be decided. He couldn't afford to falter now. The serpent's body dissolved into the water, and the swirling currents slowly calmed. Nuru took a moment to catch his breath, the cold bite of the ocean around him serving as a reminder of the trials yet to come. But something in the water had changed. It felt different now, more alive, more watchful, as if the very sea was waiting for him to make a mistake. He glanced around, trying to steady his breath as he moved deeper into the temple. The path ahead remained shrouded in darkness, the way forward uncertain. He felt the weight of the ocean bearing down on him, pressing him closer to the depths. As Nuru swam further, the water began to glow again, but this time, the light was dimmer, colder. The air itself seemed to hum with a foreboding energy. It was then that Nuru noticed the figure before him. She was standing at the center of the temple's chamber, her figure illuminated by the faint blue glow of the water. It was Azima. Her silver hair floated around her like tendrils of light, and her expression was unreadable, a mix of sorrow and regret. Her once radiant eyes, full of life and mystery, now seemed hollow, as if weighed down by memories she could not escape. You've made it this far, Nuru, Azima said softly, her voice carrying an unexpected sadness. But you do not yet know what you are truly seeking. The ocean holds many secrets. You cannot save Saad without losing yourself in the process. Nuru's heart skipped a beat. Her words cut deeper than the trials he had faced. He had come all this way, had fought so hard, and now she was telling him it was all in vain. Azima, he began, his voice shaky but determined. I will not give up. Saad was stolen from me. I will bring her back, no matter what it takes. Azima's eyes softened as she watched him, a deep, unspoken understanding passing between them. She had been where he was now, had fought her own battles, made her own sacrifices. You cannot save Saad without understanding the price, Azima whispered. I was once like you. A mortal, full of hope and love, believing I could defy the ocean's will. But the ocean is not so easily fooled. And neither are its gods. Nuru's brow furrowed. What do you mean? Azima sighed, her gaze distant as if lost in her own memories. I too made a deal with the sea. I too thought I could bargain with its gods, believing that my love would be enough to save the one I cared for. But the ocean does not bargain. It takes. It demands a price. It claimed me. And it will claim you too, if you do not heed my warning. Nuru's heart tightened at the weight of her words. Could it be true? Was he heading down the same path she had once walked, only to be consumed by the very forces he sought to defy? The gods of the ocean do not let go once they claim what is theirs, Azima continued, her voice barely a whisper. You will either give yourself to them or lose the one you love forever. That is the price of seeking the sea's heart. Nuru clenched his fists, his resolve hardening. I don't care about the price. I will not lose Saad. Not again. Azima's eyes clouded with sorrow. Then you will have to make a choice, Nuru. The ocean will not let you have both. You can save Saad, but in doing so, you will lose something precious to you. Nuru hesitated. What do you mean? What will I lose? Azima's gaze softened, a sad smile curling at the edges of her lips. You must choose. Either you sacrifice the woman you love, or you let go of me. Nuru's heart clenched at her words. The ocean had already made its demands. There was no escaping it. He had to make a choice, a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The water around him shifted, swirling as if reacting to the tension in the air. The sea seemed to whisper its own dark song, its currents beckoning him forward. "Choose wisely, Nuru," Azima whispered, her voice breaking through the sea's haunting lullaby. "The ocean is never kind to those who hesitate." Nuru swam closer to Azima, his mind swirling with confusion and fear. The weight of her words had settled deep into his heart, and for the first time since setting out on this journey, he doubted his ability to follow through. The stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. Azima's eyes met his, and for the briefest moment, he saw something in them, an understanding. A painful, haunting realization. She had been in his shoes once, and she had made the same choice. The sea had taken her, just as it threatened to take him now. "I should never have made that bargain," Azima said quietly, her voice barely audible beneath the water's hum. "I thought I could change fate. I thought love would be enough to overcome the ocean's will. But in the end, the sea doesn't care for love. It only cares for power. And you, Nuru, must decide which you will sacrifice, the one you love, or yourself." Nuru's throat tightened, and his mind raced. Was this truly the price? Was this the cost of saving Saad? Could he bear to lose Azima, the only one who had helped him thus far? But could he bear to lose Saad, the woman he had pledged his life to? The choices before him felt impossible. The ocean's voice echoed once again, reminding him of the looming consequences, its power undeniable. "No. I won't choose," Nuru whispered, defiance rising in his chest. "I'll find a way. There must be another way." Azima's expression softened, her lips parting as if she wanted to say something more. But then, something shifted. The sea around them seemed to ripple with energy, and the once calm waters began to churn again, more violently than before. "You have no more time, Nuru," Azima said urgently, grabbing his arm. "The ocean's wrath is coming for you. You must decide." Nuru's heart raced, and his breath came faster. His mind screamed for an answer, but there was none. The ocean was closing in around him, its power undeniable, and the decision he had feared was now upon him. Will Nuru make the ultimate sacrifice to save the one he loves? Or will he fall prey to the ocean's endless hunger? Nuru's heart pounded in his chest as the waters around him stirred with increasing intensity. The pressure of the ocean's depths seemed to press down on him from all sides. The gods were angry, their voices like the roars of 1,000 storms, reverberating through the very core of his being. He could feel the weight of the decision in his bones, each moment stretching into eternity as the fate of Saad, Azima, and even himself hung in the balance. Azima's grip on his arm tightened, her fingers cool and firm, anchoring him in the sea of uncertainty. Her eyes, once filled with sadness, now held a flicker of urgency. She knew what the sea demanded. She knew the price. And she knew that Nuru was running out of time. "You must choose," she repeated, her voice barely audible over the crashing waves. "The ocean will not wait." Nuru's mind was in turmoil. The love he had for Saad burned bright in his heart, but a part of him, an unfamiliar, aching part, had begun to care for Azima too. The bond they shared, forged through pain and survival, had grown stronger with every trial they faced. How could he betray either one of them? How could he make a choice when both seemed so vital to him? Saad, the woman who had once stood beside him in the village, her laughter bright and infectious, had been stolen away by the sea. He had promised her father, the mighty general, that he would bring her back. Now, the ocean had twisted her into something else, something new, a creature of its own making, a bride for a god that demanded a sacrifice. Could he truly let go of her? Could he watch as the sea consumed her, knowing he might never see the woman he loved again? Azima, on the other hand, had been the one to guide him. She had walked a path similar to his, filled with longing, regret, and pain. She knew what it was like to love someone and lose them to the sea's insatiable hunger. And yet, she still stood by him, helping him navigate the dangers of the ocean, despite knowing that her own heart was tied to the very forces they were fighting against. Nuru, Azima's voice broke through his thoughts. Please. I beg you, do not make the same mistake I made. The ocean will take everything from you. It is not kind. It does not care for love or loyalty. It only cares for its own power. You cannot win against it by sacrificing your soul. Her words hit him like a hammer. The ocean was not a force to be bargained with, no matter how strong his will or his love. The gods of the sea had their own plans, and they would not be swayed by his human desires. I don't care what it takes, Nuru said, his voice raw with emotion. I won't lose Saad. I'll find a way. There has to be another way. Azima's face softened with a mix of sorrow and pity. There is no other way, Nuru. There is only one path now. The sea around them began to churn again, more violently than ever. The current pulled at Nuru, tugging him toward the depths, as if the ocean itself was growing impatient with his indecision. But then, a sudden realization struck him, as if the truth had been lying dormant in his heart all along. What if I'm not meant to save her, he muttered aloud, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. What if the ocean has already claimed her, and there's nothing I can do? Azima's eyes widened as she heard the doubt in his voice, her grip tightening on his arm. Nuru, no. He shook his head, trying to silence the voice that whispered in his mind. Maybe it's time to let go. Maybe I've been chasing a shadow, something that was never meant to be mine in the first place. Azima's expression shifted. She studied him carefully, her eyes sharp as if seeing him for the first time. You're starting to understand, she said quietly. The ocean takes what it wants. And once it has claimed something, it is not so easily returned. Sometimes, the greatest sacrifice is not giving up the one you love, but giving up the fight itself. Nuru stared into the depths of the ocean, the swirling blue-green water reflecting his own uncertainty. He had come so far, faced so many trials, and yet, here he was, on the brink of losing everything he had fought for. What do I do? He whispered. Azima sighed, her voice barely a whisper against the crashing waves. You do what you must. Whether you save her or lose her, whether you live or die, it will be your choice. But know this, once you make your choice, there is no turning back. Before Nuru could respond, the water around them suddenly parted, revealing a dark, shadowy figure looming in the depths. The sea god had appeared, a towering, monstrous form, his presence overwhelming, like a storm gathering strength in the heart of the ocean. Your time is up, mortal, the ocean god's voice boomed, sending vibrations through the water. The price has been set. You must make your choice, or the consequences will be dire. Nuru's breath caught in his throat. The god's form was monstrous, his face hidden beneath layers of seaweed and coral, his eyes glowing with an unearthly light. The power he radiated was suffocating, a weight that pressed down on Nuru's chest. I have come to collect what is owed, the ocean god said, his voice deep and resonant. Choose. Saad, or Azima. Your heart will decide. Nuru's mind spun. The god's words rang in his ears, louder than the crashing waves, louder than his own heartbeat. He could feel the pull of both women, Saad, the woman he had promised to protect, and Azima, who had guided him and shared her own painful story with him. Both were precious to him, but in this moment, there was no way to keep them both. With the sea god looming before him, the weight of the decision finally crushed him. He had to choose. The ocean god's presence was suffocating, and Nuru felt the weight of the god's gaze on him. Every fiber of his being screamed to rebel, to defy the god's will, but there was no escaping it. The ocean was relentless, and its demands were absolute. You have no more time, mortal, the god growled, his voice like the rumble of thunder. The choice is yours, and it must be made now. Nuru felt as if the world was closing in on him. The depths of the ocean stretched before him like an endless chasm, a place of darkness and loss. His mind raced as he considered his options. Saad, his beloved, had been stolen by the sea, and now she was being transformed into something unrecognizable, a bride for a god who ruled over the tides. Could he let go of her? Could he accept the reality that she was lost to him? And Azima, she had been his guide, his ally in this strange and dangerous world. She had shared her own painful past with him, a past that mirrored his own struggle. Could he betray her? Could he sacrifice her for the woman he loved? But was it really betrayal? Was it truly a choice between love and sacrifice? As the god's voice boomed in his ears, Nuru realized the truth. There was no easy answer. There was no right or wrong choice. Only the harsh reality of the sea. Nuru's chest tightened as the ocean god's booming voice echoed through the sea. The god was an ancient force, unyielding and unforgiving, and his presence was overwhelming. The weight of the decision bore down on him like a boulder, and for a moment, Nuru wondered if the ocean would crush him under the sheer force of its will. He glanced to Azima, her silver hair rippling like moonlight under the water. Her face was a mask of sorrow, but her eyes, so full of empathy, betrayed the depth of the sacrifice she knew was about to unfold. "I can't choose," Nuru whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound of the crashing waves. "I can't betray either of you." Azima looked at him with sadness in her eyes, but her expression was soft, almost gentle. "Sometimes, Nuru, we are forced to choose the lesser of two evils. The ocean demands a price. There is no escaping it." His heart beat in his chest like a drum, erratic and painful. He loved Saad. He had promised to bring her back. But Azima had been his guide, his ally, his lifeline. She had warned him of the dangers of the ocean, just as she had faced them herself. Could he really throw away the only person who had helped him? Could he betray her for a love that was slipping further and further out of his grasp? The ocean god's laughter rumbled like thunder, breaking through Nuru's thoughts. "Your hesitation is your weakness, mortal. Choose now." Nuru's stomach twisted. The sea was alive with the tension of the moment, every ripple of water a reminder of the god's demand. The world seemed to shrink around him as he faced the impossible choice. His heart and soul ached as he looked from Azima to the murky depths where Saada's transformation was taking place. "Make your choice," the god urged, his voice cold and final. Nuru clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms as the weight of the decision finally overwhelmed him. He closed his eyes, feeling the salt of the ocean sting his skin, and whispered a prayer to the winds, the waves, and the ancestors who had walked this earth long before him. "I choose," he started, but his voice faltered, unsure of the path ahead. In that moment, he felt a strange calmness wash over him. It was as if the ocean had reached into his very soul, pulling out the last remnants of his doubt and fear. The world around him seemed to pause, as if waiting for his decision, the air thick with anticipation. "I choose," Nuru repeated, louder this time, his voice steady, though his heart was broken. He reached out, taking Azima's hand in his, and looked into her eyes. For a brief moment, their gazes locked, and Nuru saw in her eyes a reflection of his own sorrow and regret. She had already made her choice. She had sacrificed her humanity for the ocean, just as he was about to sacrifice something precious to him. "I choose to save Saad," Nuru said, his voice firm. The ocean god's laughter turned into a growl of approval. "So be it," the god declared, the sea shifting as if in response to his words. "Your choice is made. But remember this, mortal, there is always a price." Nuru felt a sudden tug, as if something deep within him had been pulled away. The world around him shifted, and he was plunged into darkness. For a moment, everything was silent, save for the rush of the ocean in his ears. And then, as suddenly as it had come, the darkness lifted. Nuru found himself standing on the edge of the vast, swirling sea. The ocean was calm now, its surface smooth as glass. Azima stood beside him, her silver hair shimmering in the light that seemed to radiate from nowhere. "You made your choice," Azima said softly, her voice tinged with sadness. "But remember, Nuru, the ocean does not forget." Nuru looked out at the water, his heart heavy with the weight of his decision. He had chosen Saad, but in doing so, he had lost something, someone precious. Azima had sacrificed so much for him, and now, he had betrayed her trust. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Azima gave him a small, sad smile. "It was always your choice, Nuru. The ocean only gives you the illusion of control." As Nuru watched, Azima slowly began to fade, her form becoming translucent, as if she was being pulled back into the depths from which she had come. Her voice, soft and haunting, lingered in his ears. "I will always be with you, Nuru," she whispered. "But remember this, the ocean's bargain is not easily broken." And with that, she was gone, swallowed by the sea, leaving Nuru alone on the shore. The days that followed were a blur. Nuru had returned to his village, his heart heavy with grief and guilt. The sea had claimed its prize, and Saad was now forever lost to him. The ocean had taken her, transformed her into something that no longer resembled the woman he had once loved. But there was still a flicker of hope within him, a hope that he would find a way to bring her back. He had made the choice, but the cost had been steep. He could still feel Azima's presence in his mind, the quiet sadness in her eyes as she faded away into the ocean's depths. It was as though the ocean had taken a piece of his soul, a piece that he would never get back. The village elders had accepted Sada's loss, and Nuru had been left to mourn in silence. His promise to bring her back had failed. The weight of his failure was unbearable, and the thought of returning to the sea, to face the ocean god once more, seemed impossible. But Nuru knew one thing: he could never forget Azima, the mermaid who had once been human, the one who had warned him of the cost of loving the sea. She had been his guide, his ally, and in the end, she had been the one to show him the truth. He had lost Saad, but perhaps, just perhaps, there was still hope for Azima. The nights grew colder as the weeks passed. Nuru's mind remained restless, constantly consumed by thoughts of Saad and Azima. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw their faces, Saad, transformed, her once bright eyes now clouded with the sea's unyielding grip, and Azima, her silver hair shimmering like the stars in the midnight sky, but now a ghost of his past. The weight of his decisions hung over him like a storm cloud, and the village's people began to notice the change in him. His once fiery spirit had dulled. He no longer laughed with the children or joined the other men by the fire to share stories. The pain in his chest, the ache of losing Saad and betraying Azima, was too much to bear. It was during one of these long, sleepless nights that Nuru heard the faintest whisper, carried by the wind. He strained his ears, unsure whether it was his imagination or the voice of the ocean itself. Nuru. The voice was soft, like a distant song, but it was unmistakably familiar. His heart raced as he stood up, his bare feet sinking into the damp earth. The night was still, the only sounds the rustling of the leaves and the distant waves. The wind carried the whisper again. "Nuru, come to me." The voice was unmistakable, it was Azima's. Without thinking, Nuru rushed toward the shore, the pull of her voice stronger than any force he had ever known. The moonlight bathed the village in silver, casting long shadows across the ground as he made his way to the edge of the ocean. There, standing at the water's edge, was a figure. It was Azima, but not as he had seen her before. She was no longer human, her form shimmering and translucent, her hair flowing like liquid silver, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. She stood just beyond the surf, her bare feet barely touching the water, as if she was no longer fully of this world. "Nuru," she said again, her voice both haunting and comforting, "You've come." Nuru's heart pounded in his chest. "Azima. What are you? What happened to you?" "I have become one with the ocean," she explained, her voice steady despite the sadness that lingered in her eyes. I am no longer the woman I once was. The ocean has claimed me, just as it has claimed Saad. But you, Nuru began, but his words faltered. You warned me. You told me the cost of loving the sea, but I never understood. I chose Saad, and now, he trailed off, his throat tight with emotion. Azima's gaze softened, and she took a step closer to him, though she was still separated by the surf. Nuru, I was once human, just like you. I too was lost to the ocean's call, drawn in by its promises of power and beauty. And just like you, I had to make a choice. But I didn't understand then. I didn't know the price. Then what happened? Nuru asked, his voice desperate. Why did you help me? Why did you warn me? Azima's expression grew distant, her eyes clouding over as if remembering a past she wished she could forget. Because I saw myself in you, Nuru. I saw the same yearning in your heart that I once had. You didn't want to lose the one you love, just as I didn't want to lose mine. But what do I do now? Nuru asked, his voice breaking. Saad is gone. And I've lost you, too. You haven't lost me, Azima said softly, her voice full of emotion. I'm still here, Nuru. I never truly left. I am the ocean now. And though I cannot return to the land, I can still help you. He looked at her, confusion clouding his thoughts. How? How can you help me if you are bound to the sea? The ocean is vast, and its magic is ancient, Azima explained. I have learned many things in my time beneath its surface. I know how to speak to its heart, and I know how to find what is lost within it. Nuru's heart skipped a beat. You can help me find Saad. Azima nodded slowly. Yes, Nuru. But you must understand, the ocean will not release her without a price. And this time, you must be willing to pay it. Nuru's stomach twisted. What do you mean? What price? Azima's eyes glistened with a sorrowful light. To free Saad, you must enter the depths of the ocean and face the very heart of its power. But in doing so, you will have to surrender something precious. Something that will change you forever. Nuru's mind raced. What could he possibly give up? What was worth more than Saad? He clenched his fists, the desire to rescue her burning within him. I'll do it. I'll face the ocean's heart. I'll sacrifice anything. Just tell me what to do. Azima sighed, her form flickering like a candle flame in the wind. You may think you're ready, but the ocean has a way of twisting hearts. You must prepare yourself, Nuru. The path you are about to walk is filled with danger. There are things in the deep that no man should ever see. But if you truly wish to save Saad, you must journey into the abyss. Nuru's mind was made up. There was no turning back now. He could not live with the weight of his choices, knowing that Saad was lost forever. He had to do whatever it took to bring her back. To save her from the ocean's hold. I will face whatever it takes, Nuru said, his voice unwavering. I will not rest until Saad is free. Azima gave him a look that was both sad and proud. Then you must follow the path to the heart of the ocean. But know this, Nuru, what you find there may change you in ways you cannot yet understand. With that, Azima began to fade, her form becoming more and more transparent as she drifted back toward the depths of the sea. Nuru, she called softly, her voice echoing in his mind. Do not forget what you have learned. The ocean is not just a force to be reckoned with, it is a mirror of your heart. Whatever you choose will shape your future. As Azima vanished into the depths, Nuru stood alone at the shore, his heart filled with resolve. The ocean was calling to him, and he knew what he had to do. Nuru's journey would not be easy, but he was determined. The ocean had claimed Saad, and he would do whatever it took to bring her back, no matter the cost. The price was steep, but his love for Saad burned brighter than any fear he had. As the moonlight bathed the ocean in silver, Nuru took a deep breath and stepped into the water. His destiny lay ahead, hidden beneath the waves. The cold waters of the ocean wrapped around Nuru's legs, and the chill of the deep seeped into his bones. The waves lapped gently against him, as though the sea itself were testing his resolve. He took one more step into the darkness, his heart pounding fiercely in his chest. The shore, the village, and everything he had known seemed so far away now. He was stepping into a world where nothing was certain, and every movement could be his last. Azima's words echoed in his mind, "The ocean is a mirror of your heart." He clenched his fists as he waded deeper, the water now rising up to his waist. What did the ocean mean by that? Was it simply a force of nature, or was there some deeper, more powerful magic at work? Nuru's thoughts were interrupted as the water around him suddenly shifted, swirling violently. He gasped, feeling the pull of something far stronger than the gentle waves he had known. The sea roared, and before he could react, a massive current swept him off his feet. His body was yanked beneath the surface, and the world around him plunged into darkness. He fought to stay conscious, but the pull of the ocean's depths was relentless. The cold pressed in from all sides, and his lungs screamed for air. He could no longer hear the sounds of the shore, the crash of the waves, or the call of the village. The only sound now was the rhythmic beat of his own heart. Suddenly, just as he thought he might drown, the force of the current released him. His body surfaced, and he gasped for air, coughing and sputtering as the salt water stung his throat. He struggled to keep his bearings as the ocean around him calmed once more, the violent waves fading into a haunting stillness. Nuru looked around, but there was nothing. Just darkness, endless water stretching in every direction. He could see nothing beneath the surface, and the sky above seemed so far away. He was surrounded by an abyss. He swallowed hard, the weight of his uncertainty pressing down on him like a heavy stone. "Azima," he whispered to the empty water, hoping for some sign, some guidance. But the sea remained silent. It was then that he noticed a faint light, distant but steady, pulsing from the depths below. Without thinking, Nuru began to swim toward it, his body moving automatically as if guided by some invisible hand. The further he swam, the stronger the light became, and with it, a strange sense of calm washed over him. It was as though the ocean, though vast and unfathomable, was not entirely hostile, at least not yet. Minutes stretched into hours, or perhaps it was days. Time lost all meaning as Nuru pushed through the waters, his body growing tired but his will unyielding. He knew he could not turn back now. Whatever lay at the heart of the ocean, he would face it. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Nuru reached the source of the light. He found himself standing on a massive, jagged rock formation, a glowing coral reef beneath him. The water here was warm, soothing even, and he could see clearly now, as though the darkness had been lifted. Before him, rising from the depths, was a towering structure of stone and coral, an ancient temple, half submerged in the sea. It glowed with an ethereal light, as though the ocean itself had built it to house something far older and more powerful than anything Nuru had ever known. He approached cautiously, his heart thudding with a mixture of awe and fear. The temple was beautiful, yet there was something about it that felt wrong, like it was both alive and dead at once. The sea around it seemed to pulse with an energy that made Nuru's skin crawl. As he stepped closer, a voice echoed through the water, deep and resonant, vibrating in his very bones. It was not a voice he could hear with his ears, but one he felt in his soul. "Why do you seek to enter my domain, mortal?" the voice boomed, powerful and all-encompassing. Nuru froze, his heart racing. The voice seemed to come from all directions, surrounding him with an overwhelming force. He looked around but saw no one, only the eerie glow of the temple. "I seek to save the woman I love," Nuru called out, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. "She has been taken by the ocean, and I beg you, mighty one, to release her." There was a long silence, and Nuru felt the weight of the ocean pressing down on him, suffocating in its vastness. Then, the voice spoke again, softer this time, though still filled with ancient power. Your love is noble, but the ocean is not so easily swayed. She is bound to the tides, and once she has entered the depths, she cannot be freed without sacrifice. I will sacrifice anything, Nuru said, desperation creeping into his voice. I will give up everything to bring her back. The voice paused, as if considering his words, before it responded, everything. Are you willing to give up your own soul, mortal? Nuru's heart skipped a beat, his mind racing. He had not anticipated such a demand. The ocean god spoke of sacrifice, but this was far beyond what he had imagined. His soul. Was he truly willing to pay such a price? He thought of Saad, of the love they had shared, the life they had planned. He thought of Azima, too. She had warned him, but even as he stood at the edge of the abyss, he could not forget her gaze, her soft words. She had been human once. She had made the same choice, and now she was lost to the sea. I will, he said, his voice resolute. I will give my soul, if it means saving Saad. The voice was silent for a long moment. Then, the temple before him shifted, its stone walls groaning as if alive. The glowing coral dimmed, and the waters around him began to swirl once more. Then come, the voice commanded. Enter the temple, and face your fate. Nuru stepped forward, his feet sinking into the soft, wet stone of the temple. He walked into the depths of the structure, the air thick with the scent of salt and ancient magic. The walls were adorned with carvings of strange, otherworldly creatures, mermaids, sea gods, and creatures from the depths of the ocean, their eyes staring out at him with haunting intensity. At the heart of the temple, in a pool of glowing water, he saw her. Saad. Her form was twisted, her once beautiful face now covered in scales and seaweed, her eyes dull and lifeless. She floated in the water, her body suspended by unseen forces, as though she were part of the ocean itself. Nuru's heart broke at the sight. This was not the woman he loved, but something else, something born of the sea. He reached out, his hand trembling, but as he did, the water around her began to churn violently. The voice spoke again. Choose, mortal. Will you save her, or will you surrender your soul? Nuru's hand hovered above the water, his heart torn in two. He could not let go of Saad, not when she was so close. But the price was steep. The ocean would take his soul, and in return, it would release her from its depths. Nuru's hand trembled above the glowing waters, every inch of his being aching to pull Saad from the ocean's grasp. His mind raced, a tempest of conflicting thoughts swirling in his head. The voice of the ocean god echoed in his ears, its deep, resonant power commanding his every thought. Choose, mortal. Will you save her, or will you surrender your soul? Nuru's heart pounded like a war drum in his chest. He couldn't let her stay here, not like this, not as a part of the sea. His love for Saad, his betrothed, burned brighter than anything else in his life. But the price was unimaginable. Would she want me to sacrifice everything for her? He thought, his gaze fixed on her transformed form. Would she want me to lose myself, to lose everything, just to see her alive? Her eyes, once filled with warmth and life, now looked as though they had been consumed by the ocean's depths, empty and distant. Yet, despite the sea's transformation of her, there was still something in her expression, something that called out to him. She was still Saad, buried beneath the ocean's enchantment. She was still the woman he had promised to spend his life with. His chest tightened as he thought of all they had shared. Their first meeting by the water's edge, their quiet talks under the stars, the dreams they had woven together for their future. The ocean had taken her from him, but he could not accept that this was how it would end. Not when he had the chance to bring her back. He turned away from Saada's transformed form, eyes wild, his mind battling with the choice before him. Should he offer his soul to the ocean, knowing that he would be bound to the depths for all eternity, or should he walk away, leaving her in the hands of the sea? His body shook with the weight of the decision, his mind spinning. And then, there was Azima. Her silver hair, her voice, her gaze, it all came rushing back to him. Azima had been the first one to warn him of the ocean's power. She had been there when he was still so sure of what he wanted, still blind to the consequences. And yet, she had become a part of his journey, a part of his heart. Azima had once been human, just like him. She had made this same choice, this same sacrifice. She had loved someone, just as he loved Saad. And now, she was lost to the ocean, trapped in a form that was neither fully human nor fully sea. She had been consumed by the ocean, and now, she was warning him of the very path he was on. Suddenly, it clicked in Nuru's mind, the ocean had lured him here not just to save Saad, but to make him choose. The god of the sea wanted more than just a soul, it wanted to see him trapped by love, just as Azima had been. The ocean wanted him to lose himself to its allure, to its depths, and to forget everything he had known. But I am not Azima, Nuru thought fiercely. I will not be another lost soul to the sea. With a final, desperate cry, he stepped back from the pool, his hands shaking as he held them out, palms toward the glowing waters. No, he shouted, his voice carrying the weight of his defiance. I will not give up my soul. I will not surrender to you. The waters around him surged with power, rising higher, as though the ocean itself were angry at his refusal. The temple rumbled, the stones groaning in protest. The light from the coral walls flickered and dimmed, casting eerie shadows across the cavern. For a moment, Nuru thought he might be swept away, lost forever to the sea. But then, something unexpected happened. The voice of the ocean god, once so overpowering and certain, now wavered. There was a flicker of hesitation in the deep, resonant tones. You choose to defy me, the voice boomed, but there was no anger in it, only a strange sadness. You choose to let her remain as she is. You would rather lose her forever than give up your soul. Nuru clenched his jaw, standing tall and resolute. Yes. I choose my soul. I choose the love that does not require sacrifice. I choose to find another way. There was a long silence. The ocean seemed to hold its breath, the temple quieting as the water stilled around him. And then, a soft sound, like a whisper, came to his ears. Well done, mortal. The light around him flared to life again, and for a moment, it was blinding. When it finally faded, Nuru found himself back at the edge of the temple, the waters calm once more. He gasped for breath, as though he had just surfaced from a deep, suffocating dive. He turned around to see Saad still floating in the water, but now, there was a soft glow surrounding her, like a faint shimmer of hope. Her form was not yet restored to her human self, but it was as though the ocean had relented, just enough for him to reach her. The voice of the ocean god spoke once more, this time gentler, almost mournful. Your love is strong, mortal. Stronger than I expected. But remember this, no one escapes the ocean unscathed. She will never be the same as she once was. And neither will you. Nuru nodded, his heart heavy with the truth of the god's words. But he would not let the ocean break him. He would find a way to save Saad without losing himself. He had to. The sea parted, and the currents slowly calmed, as though the ocean itself was withdrawing. Nuru reached out to Saad, his hand trembling but filled with determination. As he took her in his arms, the ocean's pull lessened, and he felt a strange warmth in the waters that surrounded them. The temple faded from sight, and the ocean around them seemed to whisper a final warning. This is not over. The depths will call again. Nuru didn't answer. He only held Saad tighter, and together, they began to swim back to the shore. But the sea was not done with him yet. As they neared the surface, Nuru's heart skipped a beat as he felt a familiar presence beside him. Azima. She had followed him, through the depths, through the trials of the ocean. She had not left him, even after everything. And as the shore came into view, he realized the hardest choice was yet to come. He had saved Saad, but the ocean still held Azima's heart, and she was not finished with him either. The journey was far from over. The moon hung low over the horizon, casting a pale light on the gentle waves of the sea. Nuru stood at the edge of the village, holding Saad close as she slept in his arms, her once distant eyes now warm with recognition. The ocean had taken her, twisted her into something unrecognizable, but now she was whole again, her human form restored. Yet, Nuru knew the depths had not yet released their claim on her. They had let her go, but the ocean's mark was deep. As they made their way back to the village, the weight of the journey was heavy on Nuru's heart. He had given everything, his soul, his courage, his resolve, to save the woman he loved. But now, he wondered if he had truly freed her. Or had he simply delayed the inevitable? When they reached the village, the elders greeted them with astonished faces. Nuru had returned with Saad, the one they had mourned as lost. The village rejoiced, songs of triumph filling the air, but Nuru's mind was elsewhere. The battle with the ocean god was not over. He could still feel its presence in the back of his mind, a constant whisper calling to him from the depths. It was then that Azima appeared. Her silver hair shimmered in the moonlight as she stepped from the shadows, her gaze steady and filled with understanding. She no longer wore the form of a mermaid, but the ghostly presence of the sea still clung to her, as though it was an invisible weight upon her soul. She had followed them to the surface, just as she had promised. But now, Nuru saw her for who she truly was, not just the guide he had relied upon, but a woman who had once made the same sacrifice he had tried to avoid. "Nuru," Azima said softly, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. "You saved her. But the ocean's hold on me is not so easily broken. It still calls to me, just as it will call to you, if you stay here." Nuru looked at her, his heart heavy. "Azima, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done. But I can't leave her. I can't abandon Saad now." Azima nodded, her eyes filled with sorrow. "I know. But you must understand, once the ocean claims you, it never truly lets go. I was once human, like you. I loved, I lost, and I made a choice that bound me to the depths. You cannot fight the ocean forever. You must choose, Nuru. You must choose whether to stay in the world above or let the sea claim you entirely." The truth of her words hit Nuru like a stone in his chest. The ocean was powerful, more powerful than he had ever imagined. It had given him everything he had ever wanted, Sada's return, her life, but it demanded a price. It was a price he could no longer ignore. "I can't let you suffer like this," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I won't let the ocean take you. Not after everything you've done for us." Azima's face softened, a smile tugging at her lips despite the sadness in her eyes. "It's too late for me, Nuru. But it's not too late for you. You have the chance to live free of the ocean's curse. You can choose to stay with Saad. To live your life, to love her without fear." Nuru looked at Saad, who had woken at the sound of Azima's voice. Her eyes were filled with confusion and love as she gazed between the two of them. "Is this true?" Saad asked, her voice soft. "Can we really leave this behind, Nuru? Can we be free of the sea?" Nuru turned to face her, his heart swelling with love. "Yes," he said firmly. "We can be free. Together." Azima stepped forward, her silver hair shimmering in the light. "Then you must make the final choice. The ocean will not let you go easily, Nuru. But your love for Saad, and your desire to live free, will be your strength. Do not let it take you down the path I walked. Do not let it consume you." With one last look at the ocean, Nuru made his decision. The god of the sea might have given him Saad, but it would not have his soul. He would not be a prisoner of the sea, nor would he let the ocean claim his love. He would fight for his future, for the life he had always wanted with Saad. He turned to Azima, his voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you. You saved me from a fate I didn't understand. You saved us both." Azima nodded, her expression peaceful. "You have the strength to be free. Now, live your life. Love her as you were meant to." With that, Azima turned and walked toward the water. Nuru and Saad watched as she disappeared into the sea, her figure blending with the night. For a moment, Nuru felt a pang of sorrow, but it was fleeting. Azima had made her choice long ago. Now, it was his turn. He took Saada's hand in his grip steady and strong. Together, they walked toward the village, where their future awaited. As they reached the heart of the village, the people cheered, but Nuru's eyes were only on Saad. She was his world now, and he would protect that world with everything he had. They had survived the storm, and now, together, they would face whatever came next. The ocean had tested him, had pushed him to the brink, but in the end, it had given him the strength to choose. And that, Nuru realized, was the true gift, the gift of choice. The sea would always call, but Nuru had learned that love was stronger than any tide. And with that, they stood together, looking toward the horizon, where a new dawn was beginning. A dawn of hope, love, and freedom.